officers from North Yorkshire, Keisha Moore, Melissa Burnham, and Richard Binks, Louise Neal, Matt Robinson, Simon Wright, Louise Neal, and I'm sure they'll introduce their role before they speak. And can I also welcome Knaresborough Town Councillor David Good, who's going to do a presentation for us. And can I just remind members that you are aware that there is a by-election going on within the Hutton, Rugby and Osmotherley division. And therefore we do need to be mindful of giving individual or political groups a platform at this stage. So please just be aware of that. We've had apologies for absence from councillors Chris Aldred, Sam Gibbs and John Mann. We now come on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of June. Would somebody like to move and second those? I think that's Councillor Schofield. Are you moving? Councillor Broadbank, you're seconding. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Anybody abstaining or objecting? No? Thank you very much. Right. Any declarations of interest, members? Peter.
Better? I'm going to... in the light of items... Still not good. Can I shout? It won't be on there. Try that one. In the light of items 5 and 6, both referencing Knaresborough, I'm a director of Knaresborough District Chamber of Trade and also of Knaresborough Connectors, and I am an eight years veteran of driving an electric vehicle. Thank you.
Now we come to agenda item... Oh, sorry.
Can I declare that I'm a Knaresborough Town Council relating to agenda item 6?
Councillor Ward, did you...
Can I do the same for items 5 and 6, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Already done. Any more declarations of interest? So we're moving on. They've already done it. Yeah. We're now on agenda item 4, which is public participation. And we have to remind those that are coming to speak today that they have 3 minutes to make those statements. We're going to go, first of all, then invite Mr. Margolis to read out a statement on behalf of Harrogate District Action. Mr. Margolis?
Ooh, turn that off. Is that any good? Is that right? Thank you. Councillors, am I turning?
You have to be on the record.
I could start the 3 minutes again, please. Councillors, we are asking you for the good of our town to save Harrogate Station Gateway. Along with many others, we think the plan is very beneficial. Some of you think the same, some don't, or rather you agree with some of it, but not with key elements, notably making Station Parade one lane and pedestrianising part of James Street. Whichever view you take, and whatever reasons some of you have for opposing it, we are asking you to consider what happens if the £11 million is returned unused, apart from the £2 million apparently already spent on consultants. It would, we suggest, be pretty certain that North Yorkshire Council's already low level 1 rating with Active Travel England would drop further to level 0, making future funding for active travel projects unlikely for years to come. Nor do we believe the council would or should keep either the money or its rating if it scraps those key elements which reallocate road space in favour of active travel. Andrew Jones MP, who himself has mixed views about Gateway, wrote to me in June, "I am pleased it has not stalled nor fallen foul of the often inaccurate and vociferous criticism it has received. It is important local authorities show they can deliver projects, and this is a big test for North Yorkshire Council. Station Gateway will boost NYC's rating to perhaps to 2 or perhaps even 3. This in turn helps their chances of accessing more government funding. I hope construction will begin at the earliest opportunity. As the council has noted, we have done enough talking, it is time for some doing." End of quote. This £11 million was awarded to improve the public realm and sustainable travel to the town and its rail and bus stations. There are many other changes on which most of us would agree. Making West Park and Parliament Street two-way might be one. Creating a first-class cycling and walking network, better buses and bus lanes, enabling us all to use our cars less where possible. To have a realistic chance of getting funding for such things, you must show you can deliver. The council has already failed to deliver getting funded schemes on Oatlands Drive, Victoria Avenue, the A59 at Knaresborough, Otley Road, and has abandoned the Beech Grove filter. This record was certainly a factor in the government's rejection of its recent active travel bids. It will be a massive disservice to Harrogate to now dump the £11 million Gateway scheme as well. As Andrew Jones appreciates, this is a massive test and crucial moment for your council. The judicial review claims there should have been a public inquiry. If so, it seems an extraordinary error by the council. We suggest you ask for deadlines to be extended if necessary, to enable an inquiry to be held and other substantive issues, if any, to be resolved without delay. Thank you.
Have any members got any? Have any members got any questions at all? No? Then can I ask Mark, are you going to make a comment?
Yes, Chair. It's just a short response to the statement. It's that the committee notes the statement from Harrogate District Action Cycle Action. The project is being considered by the Executive on the 19th of September, and ACC members will be able to consider the next steps as appropriate following the Executive meeting.
Thank you. Somebody could turn their phone. Thank you. We're now on to agenda item 5, which is a petition referred to the committee for consideration about electric vehicle charging points installation in Knaresborough. I'll hand over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. The committee or the council has received a petition which has received over 500 signatures, and as such it is referred to the ACC committee. So therefore, this petition has been received, it has been verified as having over 500 signatures, and it's therefore for consideration by the committee. When it receives a commission, the committee has a number of possible courses of action: to take the action requested by the petition, not to take the action, to commission further investigation, or require further information prior to the final decision, or anything else that it may well want to do with that particular petition. The process is that the petitioner would read out the petition with a time limit of 5 minutes, then the committee would enter a period of debate for 15 minutes regarding that petition. This particular petition, the petitioner is unable to attend this particular meeting, so has asked me to read out a statement on their behalf. The petitioner is Kelly Teggin, and the petition statement is quite lengthy, and I'll do my best to keep it within the 5 minutes, but hopefully I'll do it justice on their behalf. So this is the actual statement that would have been read out in support of the petition. So the petition is that we, the undersigned, being the businesses, residents and visitors to Knaresborough, regret the timing, location and lack of engagement undertaken in the installation of 10 EV charging points in our town centre short stay car park. We therefore call upon North Yorkshire Council to enter into urgent dialogue to discuss a phased transition to full electric vehicle provision and safeguard our town centre businesses by maximising the availability of parking for all vehicle users until a greater need arises. So that's the actual petition. The statement is, Knaresborough has been part of a pilot scheme to introduce the necessary EV charging point infrastructure to achieve targets expected to be required by 2038. Like any market town, there is a recognition of the need for this transition and that the provision of such charging points can be an attraction to visitors and residents alike if introduced at the right time and in the right place. However, in this case, the implementation of charging points in the Chapel Street car park and at Cunningham Hall have both, in the view of those signing the petition, been badly handled in terms of consultation and the choices made. They are causing significant negative impact on traders in the town centre, on our attractiveness to visitors and potentially to the environment through increased congestion associated with the choice of Chapel Street as a location for 10 charging points. We recognise that contracts have been signed between the council and the third-party provider, which, if not renegotiated, will continue to cause harm to local trading conditions for months, if not years to come. However, this contract has not been in line with initial consultation on the appropriate location of charging points and, as outlined in our detailed submission, is causing significant harm to the town. We also understand that lessons learnt from the poor implementation of this scheme will be applied to other locations, but Knaresborough is left with the impact. We therefore call on the council to seek to renegotiate the contract for the Chapel Street charges and consider a phased approach to the 10 active EV Chapel Street town centre spaces, e.g. monitor usage, and have some as mixed use during the day until the demand for EV charging points increases. I won't go into some of the detail because I have to expand on some of the other areas. It's quite expansive. Actively engage with the third party with whom NYC has the EV contract for Knaresborough to see if a compromise can be reached as outlined above, especially given that the town was a pilot location. Provide clarity on whether electric vehicles are permitted to park in EV-only spaces, even if they are not charging. Improve the signage around EV parking and the car club scheme in Knaresborough and raise awareness about the latter. Monitor the air quality in and around Chapel Street as a consequence of the additional congestion and pollution. Urgently to introduce a park and ride scheme that links the York Place long stay car park to compensate for the loss of town centre parking and consider extending this to Cunningham Hall. Remove the parking restrictions in the Cunningham Hall tourist car park and make the 14 inactive EV-only spaces available to all until a hookup date is fixed. Monitor usage of the 14 EV Cunningham Hall spaces once these are activated and ensure that supply and demand are proportional for current needs. Improve all signage for car parking on each entry point to the town, including real-time information about availability of spaces. There is some supporting information which I will try and summarise rather than read the detail. So, context. Knaresborough has a growing population of over 15,000. The town is geographically divided into two distinct areas. A large amount of new housing has been approved and built on the outskirts of Knaresborough in the past 3 years, including developments of over 1,000 car-dependent houses off the A59 York Road to the eastern side of Knaresborough. The businesses and residents of Knaresborough are not against EV vehicles and recognise the need for the town to be welcoming to EV vehicles owned going forward. The main town centre and castle are separated from the waterside area by steep hills, steps and hills. The town centre has a high concentration of independent retailers, service, hospitality and appointment-based businesses and is served by 174 short-stay car parking spaces according to the NYC web pages. There are 10 active EV-only charging points in the main town centre for our short-stay accessible shoppers car park next to the shops and businesses. They are all 7 kilowatt chargers that are best suited to overnight or longer periods of charging than permitted in the Chapel Street 4-hour short-stay car park during the day. There is no clear signage about the car club scheme and there has been no local publicity about it. There is also no clear signage relating to the 10 active Chapel Street EV car parking spaces. The Chapel Street short stay car park, where the EV points are located, has only one entry and exit point. The Chapel Street short stay car park is situated opposite Cogs Centre on Gracia Street, an important community asset which includes a preschool and community support services and activities. It is our understanding that in the original council documents, some or all of the 10 Chapel Street Town Centre EV charging points were supposed to be located in the York Place Longstay car park. Knaresborough was part of a pilot scheme, and it has been admitted that mistakes were made and lessons learned. Many independent shops and appointment-based businesses in the town have reported customers feeding back that they will no longer be using business in Knaresborough as it is too difficult to park. At a time when small independent businesses are facing numerous external challenges, it is vital that footfall is maintained, especially for the town's seasonal businesses who rely almost entirely on summer trade. As mentioned previously, Knaresborough is geographically challenged. Of the 800 spaces frequently mentioned by the council in response to our concerns, 425 are located at the bottom of the steep cliffs and hills in the waterside tourist car parks, and too far away for them to be of practical use to most people carrying shopping or with mobility problems. Tourist and recreational parking and Cunningham Hall EV charging points. The waterside area and its picturesque viaduct is popular with both locals and day visitors, with recent research showing Knaresborough to be the third most Instagrammed location in Yorkshire after the North Yorkshire Moors and York Minster. The 14 EV points in the main tourist car park at Cunningham Hall were installed at the start of the year, but when Councillor Matt Walker approached the electric company recently to inquire when they would be activated, no specific date had yet been booked in. And the last point is, in addition, the adjacent Henshaw's Arts and Crafts Centre, which allows people with a range of disabilities to explore their talents, has reported that its art makers were struggling to park in the centre's own private car park due to the spaces being used inappropriately by visitors when the Cunningham Hall car park is full. So that's the statement that was asked to be read out on behalf of the petitioner for this particular petition. Could I just ask the appropriate officer if there's any points of clarification, Keisha, in terms of any of the points that have been made in that statement?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Then it's over to yourself and the committee.
Thank you very much, Mark. Can I ask members, are there any matters of clarification on that? Okay, I've got Councillor Walker.
Thanks for the full report, Keisha, and thanks for Kelly presenting sending the petition in. In the report, you've talked about kind of utilisation, but you've talked about the number of vehicles. From my perspective, I think it might be useful to understand kind of I like utilisation, not number of vehicles, because when we've originally had a conversation, we've talked about they were filled for 20% of the time, and you've now talked about number of cars. I want to try and understand at what point we're going to get to 100% utilisation based on the current forecast. So some of that is about data. The other part is about clarification on who can currently park in there and what is classed as a breach of contract. So I've asked for what is the contract. I've been told I've been sent it. I haven't got the PDF, so I can't clearly see. I can't read for myself what is technically a breach of contract. But what you've described in the report is that currently anybody can park in that car. In those spots. So is that a breach of contract? Is it not? Because if we're going to change it and it's all vehicle, and then you're telling me we can't be flexible in those spaces because it's breach of contract, I don't see any material difference. So I'd like that clarification. And I'd just like to sort of say to any of my residents or anybody out there that anybody that has got a parking ticket for parking in those bays, I'm quite happy to defend and get those revoked because there are no TROs in place, so you shouldn't have got a ticket. So that's all my points. If you could answer those, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
No problem. So first on the data, we thought it would be useful for the businesses to be able to see, because we know that they were copied into the responses that we've been exchanging, to see in physical terms, what does that look like? How many vehicles would be parked in those bays for any particular period of the day? So we see in the forecast that 3 were forecast to be kind of filled within the first year, and that is 3 charging points utilised 100% of the time. What we're seeing is that 5 vehicles are using those bays. at the moment, so that's based on the current usage. So that's why we changed the figures. It was just we felt like that would be a better interpretation and probably what the public wanted to see, to digest that information a little bit easier. If you'd like it reversing and giving you the utilisation stats, then I can do that after this meeting. That's not a problem. In terms of what can happen at the minute, so the reason that we can't, any vehicle can park in those spaces without being issued a PCN for not charging is because there isn't a TRO on those bays. And that TRO is wrapped up in the wider car parking orders process that we're going through at the moment, and that's subject to review, and hopefully we'll get a final output on that very soon. If that TRO was in place now, then we could find people that were driving an ICE vehicle and parking in those bays. So that's the reason for the kind of difference in what's happening now versus what's happening within the future. The grant funding conditions, which I'll stress, are with the government, and it's about the government's funding conditions, as opposed to the contract with the supplier, which is the contract that you have had access to, is the one that states that a TRO must be put in place for all the bays. It's the one that suggests that the bays must be managed and maintained for 7 years post-delivery. And it's that bit of the contract we've been liaising with them. They know the situation with us novating to a single council, single tier authority council, and therefore understand that the TRO hasn't been implemented yet, and that's why we can't charge people and make those bays available for EV charging only. So I think is that all of your questions?
So if I can come back, so you've talked about them being flexible and understanding. So why don't we have another conversation with them so that we can be flexible and understanding, so that those parking spaces are fully utilised? They seem very reasonable people, and that's the request of the petition holder. We want to get those spaces utilised so that people are coming in and using the businesses in the town.
And that discussion is a discussion that's ongoing with OZEV right now.
I've got two more people who'd like to ask a question. That's Councillor Lacey. Did you want to ask a question?
This works. Thank you. And again, thank you for the report. I'd just like to make one point and then ask a couple of simple questions. I'm disappointed that the figure of 800 keeps occurring. If we're aware, and also the statement in 5.5 that Cunningham Hall, which is described as another car park within the central Knaresborough area, it is not in the central Knaresborough area. It's half a mile away. It's like asking people to park in the Hydro to come shopping in Harrogate, up a steep hill half a mile away. Those long stay car parks, particularly Cunningham Hall, performs a different function. There are actually only 174 short stay car parking spaces in the centre of Knaresborough that are appropriate for the sort of shopping that particularly the traders are concerned about. The other point in terms of York Place car park, 240 places, there is no level access from York Place car park that doesn't involve pedestrians walking on the street. And at one point, it is single file along the pavement. The car park access to the town centre is described on the North Yorkshire website as a pleasant walk. It is not a pleasant walk, and it is not appropriate in terms of, it's not acceptable in terms of the facility that it potentially provides. So 174 in the centre, of which 10 have been taken out of action with some EV charging points, is why the traders and the residents are equally concerned. In a survey that Chamber carried out, 7 out of 10, both residents, visitors and traders, all believed that the contracts should be explored and renegotiated. The question that I have, because I'm a little bit confused as to whether, because you say that no consultation has been held, whether it's conversations or statutory consultation, etc. But we have been led to believe that York Place was considered for the charging point. So I'd like to know whether that was the case. And I'd like to also know whether you're aware that the crash barriers in the Chapel Street car park EV charging places are all bent and potentially dangerous. Thank you.
So, in answer to the first
Okay.
question, York Place was considered initially, but there's a covenant on the car park, and I think that was one of the main considerations as to why we didn't take that forward. On the second issue, I wasn't aware that there was an issue with the crash barriers, and that's something we'll take away and have a look at later today.
I'm going to ask Mark to make a comment.
It's just a comment to the committee, really, that the information in the report that was provided by officers was really just to give enough information to have a debate amongst yourselves. So it's not really for points on sort of policy procedure with the officers. It's really have your own discussion about your views about these particular issues brought up by the petitioner, to come up with your own recommendation to then give to the executive. Because we didn't really know the subject matter of the actual petition statement until much sooner than we would have had to prepare his full report. So although some of the points are quite useful, they wouldn't necessarily be expected to be answered by officers today. It's just really just points of clarification, really, and it's really a discussion and debate amongst yourselves that this petition, the particular 15 minutes is for this item.
Thank you, Mark. I've got one more person, Arnold Warnigan. You wanted to make a question?
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity as well, because people watching won't realise that when you put things to a vote, I don't put my hand up. It's because I can't vote. I don't want people to think I'm just apathetic, okay? I used to use this service quite early. I was actually shocked and surprised at the same time when I pulled into the car park at Chapel Street to see that line of EV chargers. Nobody was on it. I put my vehicle of 11 years on it. I was in the centre opposite for 3 hours and in a position where I could look down at my vehicle and look at its solar panels on its roof, etc. And nobody else used it in that 3 hours, which made me wonder, was it over the top? I'm totally behind EV charging points. One reason I'm totally behind this and the ones that are well thought through and not going to create problems is because there's a movement out there that's anti-EV. And the number of times I've experienced people deliberately parking in those spots to stop a person who's driving an EV get access to it. There's an anxiety whilst the infrastructure is not in place for people that drive EVs. That I went to Arran and I was anxious going from here to Arran because the infrastructure wasn't there, but it wasn't going to stop me. I didn't have a relaxing holiday because I was worrying how I was going to get back. But the fact is that we need to make this journey easy and engage with everybody. And I don't think, not the council, just the general issue isn't doing that. So I think we have a responsibility to get that information out there and engage with as many people as possible and bring them along with us, that this is a positive move, not a negative move, because the opposition are quite vociferous, particularly on social media about this. And I just want to say well done for what you're rolling out, but can we just pull back a little bit and say, well, have we done it right? Have we learned from this? And going forward, are we going to apply that lesson that we've learned as well? Thank you.
Can I just remind members, this is a point for clarification. We're now going to go into debate, so the points that people are making could be made at that time. Can we have, is there a debate to be had? Anybody wants to speak? Councillor Walker.
So I'd like to, I don't want to stifle the debate, but I would like to raise a proposal and see if people are supportive of it. I have printed it out, so I've got a few copies if that makes people's...
Can I say that's it's going to happen after the debate, so turn your microphone off. It's going to happen after the debate. So, if you want to make a proposal, then do it then. Any more comments? Councillor Haslam.
I think the most important thing from this is that we do use these opportunities as learning opportunities, and how we can do it better next time. I do feel, as Arnold has already mentioned, is that I think there's a lack of understanding out there, and I think we need to understand what it is. What are people's barriers to usage of EV charge points? A lot of EV charging goes on at home, etc. And I think we really need to understand that. So I think there should be a little bit of market research, for want of a better phrase, and we need to understand. We're getting the voices from the people who are saying they're getting in the way, but we need to get the voices of why are they not being utilised at the rate we expect. And I think there's definitely a learning to be had there. So I just put that into the mix, Chair.
Any more comments? Hannah Goss.
I too hope this new council can learn from the mistakes and the mistakes of the past council, and I think that's within, similar to Councillor Haslam was saying, but this is engagement and communication, so engagement with our community, our town council and our chamber and business collective. I think this is where a lot of issues have arisen from, and that's been absolutely no engagement and communication. So this is not the new council issue, but something that we can learn from going forward.
Right. Can I ask if there's anyone else wanting to speak? Because if not, I'm going to ask for a proposal and a seconder.
So as part of the whole sort of EV, I'd just like to see if we could get some consistency across the whole of North Yorkshire. There seems to be varying amounts of kind of charging points. We've got sort of slower chargers in Knaresborough. We've been told about some really fast charging across the rest of North Yorkshire. In Knaresborough, in Conningham Hall, we're going to get some of them connected to the grid. People have to pay for them. At Hornbeam Park, there's charging points there. I'm not sure whether they're connected or not. Again, in Hornbeam Park by the train station, you don't have to pay for a ticket. So there's an inconsistency, and not having that consistency, people might choose to drive in their cars to charge because they get a different experience, and that's going to have a discrepancy about why people might go to a different place to go shopping or do whatever they're doing. So I would urge you to try and get some of that consistency if we can do that.
Councillor Lacey.
A brief point in terms of the diversity of charging at home, and I appreciate in terms of the report that this is about a town centre where a lot of people don't have access to off-street parking, and therefore to be able to put in charging points. So the on-street parking is important, but there are solutions out there for lamppost chargers, for whatever dispersed charging, if you like, that's much more local to people than sort of taking up a chunk in a car park. So just a diversity of approaches, so that when we get to the point where actually we're all driving EV vehicles, we don't all have to sort of pile into a car park if we haven't got off-street parking. So diversity, I think, in terms of solution would be useful.
If there are no more comments from anyone, can I ask then that there is a proposer and a seconder for the motion?
So would you like me to read out the proposal so that people watching online can hear what it is? And then if I've got somebody to second it, that'd be great. So the AECC supports EV charging to reduce pollution in the town, but acknowledge that EV charging point installation has been poorly implemented in Knaresborough due to the inadequate engagement, communication with local residents, businesses and local councillors. The ACC supports the request from the petitioner of the 9 points listed below. In addition to this, the ACC requests a full review of parking in Knaresborough within the next 6 months to ensure spaces, pricing and locations are in line with the needs of both the town's residents and visitors. We also call on North Yorkshire to develop a strategy for EV charging, including on-street charging, rather than rely on piecemeal funding and projects that run the risk of poor implementation, undertaking appropriate engagement to ensure local residents buy-in.
Anyone else wanting to add anything to that? That's been proposed and seconded, and I believe everybody's got a copy of it in front of them. If there's no more, then if that's been proposed and it's... Oh, sorry, Councillor Harris. Can't see him because of that.
There's clearly a lot in the petition. I can't support what's written down here because some of it is just simply unachievable, such as urgently introduce a park and ride scheme. Like you can just urgently introduce a park and ride scheme. That's just words. It's clearly whoever's proposing that round this table knows that can't be done. And there's many things in here with budgetary implications. So I can't support something without understanding the budgetary implications of something. So I can't support this, I'm afraid, Chair.
Councillor Hassan?
I have a few difficulties with the particular motion as it's put forward. The outcome, the bullet points, maybe we can debate later, but the actual thing that call on North Yorkshire to develop a strategy for EG charging, I believe that there is a strategy. The question really is it's about how the funding works. So I think we're actually being a little bit, I would say we're being harsh on the council and maybe not understanding and therefore not having what I would call a supportive approach here. The fact that we're suggesting it's been poorly implemented, I would suggest they've been well implemented. The problem is that we've not had the feedback and the follow-up and the policy that says, actually, we put these in. Now, what monitoring process have we got that is telling us whether this is working or not? And so I get exactly what you're saying, and I get all the frustrations that come out of here, but I just wonder if this is a little bit of an adversarial rather than actually working with council officers to actually develop something. And that's really why I struggle with the motion. I don't struggle with the sentiments of it. I think we've got to get this absolutely right. But I do struggle with some of the wording, I'm afraid. And I just think that, sort of our best allies are the council officers. And I think they need to be criticised when criticism is necessary. I think they need to get our feedback, but I also think they need to get our support because they are dealing with a lot of complex issues. So would you consider perhaps softening the tone of your proposal? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Walker, did you want to respond?
Yeah, if I could just respond. So at last full council, I did ask the executive member if there was an EV charging strategy, and I got told that there wasn't one currently in place. Going to park and rides, we could have a debate about what urgent is. I think we need to review park and ride strategies. We've got one in Scarborough, so why shouldn't we explore looking at them elsewhere? And that's what we've asked for. We've not said that we have one. We've asked to urgently explore one. So I think we're getting in the semantics, and at the minute I'm not prepared to alter the motion.
Councillor Harrison?
I mean, I might be pedantic, but the motion says urgently to introduce a park and ride scheme that links the York Place long-stay car park. I mean, unless I'm reading that wrong, that's not what you've just said. But it doesn't matter anyway. It's irrelevant.
Councillor Hassan, then I'm going to go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll come to you, Councillor Warnock, then.
Do you want to go first, Arnold?
Are you going to vote?
No, I'm just... So...
yeah, can I go first then?
Yeah.
Only because if I go second, you might say what I'm going to say.
In which case, I'll have to say something else.
Yes. Well, actually, firstly I was going to say, I did agree with most of what you said anyway, because I've underlined here poorly implemented, inadequate engagement. And I just think that the tone isn't engaging with the officers. We were talking about engaging with the public. You know, this is I mentioned the phrase, or put the phrase, a journey here, and we all have to work together. So I feel it's being disingenuous to the officers to suggest it's poorly implemented, because they're the ones that have implemented it. And implemented what? Because apparently we don't have a scheme anyway. So inadequate engagement. Well, we can't disassociate ourselves from responsibility here. We instruct and work with officers, they don't just go away and do it on their own. We're meant to be members that are elected to guide this through. And so if the officers are at fault, we're at fault, because we haven't engaged either. So I don't have a vote, which is very frustrating. But if I did have a vote, I would want it poorly implemented taking out, inadequate engagement taking out, and certainly item 6, which has already been referred to, because why can't we slot item 10 in and say, can we have a park and ride at the Yorkshire Showground as well? Because I spent another 14 minutes travelling 2 miles. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Haslam?
Thank you, Arnold. I just want to reflect this part tree, or however many trees it was, reflects all the work that was done between 2017, 2018 on park and ride, amongst other things, and all the other issues that are going on with congestion in the town. And in actual fact, I even have my own. Oh, I'm not allowed to show that, am I? It's the wrong time of the year. Anyway, the point being that a lot of work has been done, and I want to bring this up under item 9, that says, actually, we did a lot of work on congestion, and reduction of congestion, and also the local transport plan. And I think we have to work with the officers in order to get this through. What I would say is there's a lot of knowledge, as you can see, already out there. It might need to be revisited as a result. COVID has changed patterns in how people work, etc. But I still think that there is room for what I would call a softer motion. Thank you.
Anybody else wanting to speak? Okay. We have before us, I think, 9 points that you wishes to raise, and you have moved it, and it's been seconded. Okay. If there's no more comments, then can we go and vote on the 9 points that are put before us this morning? All those in favour of those points? That's 6. Those against? 4 against. Abstentions? No. So 6 for. So those points have been accepted. Okay. Thank you. Now can we move on to agenda item 6? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
Which is a presentation from Knaresborough Town Council, Thriving Knaresborough 2030. Can I invite our guest to speak, please?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak to you all this morning. I think I'm the first representative from a town and parish council that's taken up the opportunity that this area committee has extended for representatives from town and parishes to come and talk to you. Today, it's my aim to take you through a little bit of history of what's happened in Knaresborough, the challenges that we face today, and the work we've done in preparation for potential opportunities for double devolution and what they may open up for us as a community. And finally, if we can get the slides. And finally, a request for help, or a number of requests for help from this committee. Some of the slides, when we get it going, are busy. I'm not looking for you to read all the detail in the slides. The important thing is the message behind them. And if we can move on to the next slide. Is it possible to pull it up on full screen? Okay, I'll continue while the technology sorts itself. To start with a few facts about Knaresborough and its extensive history. The area's been inhabited since about 500 BC. We've taken part in significant events in English history. The first Maundy money was distributed in Knaresborough in 1210. We've been a local trading centre for many centuries, with the town market getting its charter in 1310. St James's School is one of the oldest schools in the country. We did gain a castle. It was built around the 1100s. Unfortunately, it was knocked down about 1648, where local residents, with the help of Oliver Cromwell's army, thought the stone was better used in their houses rather than in a castle for the king. Today, Knaresborough has a population of 15,700. We're one of the UK's top tourist towns based on the number of views on Instagram and TikTok. We've got 2 significant SSIs, and the core of our historic town is protected through a conservation area designation, which was established in 1969. Next slide, please. As a community, we face many challenges. Maintaining a strong local economy in a competitive market environment, maintaining standards and growing services to cope with the influx of new residents due to the 2,000 plus new homes being built. The town suffers from congestion, antisocial behaviour, high house prices, low paid jobs, with a significant number of residents commuting to work on a daily basis away from the town. As a tourist destination, we suffer from lack of connectivity between different parts of the town, particularly the riverside and town centre. And we suffer from the lack of hotel accommodation, poor tourist promotion, and slow growth in new businesses setting up in the town. New slide, please. Introducing Knaresborough Town Council, the council has experience of delivering services and the management of assets within the town. Today we have an income of £168,000, of which £147,000 is raised through the precept. We deliver a number of services on behalf of local residents. Our mayor supports local organisations and events and represents the town further afield. We provide the town-wide Christmas lights, put on events like Bright Friday, which is the lights turning on event, or we support other organisations in the town to run events, such as Remembrance Day. We provide grant support to local voluntary sector organisations, and we deal with a significant number of health and safety issues, reporting local issues such as potholes to this council. We're a consultee on traffic management issues, such as the provision of parking restrictions. We work closely with the emergency resilience team to support flooding and terrorist events. And we're a statutory planning consultee and manage the erection of banners across the high street. In terms of assets, we own 2 allotment sites. We own a building called Knaresborough Wellbeing Hub, King George V Sports Field. We have a temporary stage, which is used by different used for different events through the town, and we support a number of road closures, or we provide a number of road closure signs used by the council and can be borrowed by community groups. Next slide, please. Today, the Town Council works with North Yorkshire Council in a number of different areas. In emergency response, we've got a significant and successful working relationship proven particularly through flooding events over a number of years. We work closely with the planning department in terms of the development of our neighbourhood development plan. We're a consultee on planning and highway parking restrictions. Recently appointed anchor organisation as part of Yorkshire's implementation of their new community development strategy. We work closely with Brimham's Active, and we've been working with North Yorkshire Council officers on a number of shared prosperity funding bids. We've currently submitted 3 bids. One wanted to enhance the museum offering in the town. The second looking at how we can improve connectivity between different voluntary sector organisations. And finally, a project to collect data and intelligence on Knaresborough, data that can be used to support future strategy development and funding bids. Next slide, please. A couple of years ago, we looked at the potential opportunities that double devolution could open up for us as a town. We recognised that having a strong community partnership was likely to be a key enabler in terms of double devolution, delivery of service and management of local assets. To this end, we engaged with a number of different projects to establish a better understanding of our existing capabilities within the voluntary and charity sector. There are, in reality, over 120 organisations in Knaresborough, ranging from Rotary, Lions, and many organisations delivering services today to support many elements and individuals within our community. This programme eventually morphed into a programme we now call Knaresborough Voice, where an increasing number of local groups get together to develop joint strategy and improved working relationships. One of the projects that developed from this work was a programme to create an information database for new residents to the town that would give them details in terms of a wide range of organisations that are available to help them settle into our community. The data, once available, of course, is available to everybody. New slide, please. As one of the Voice workshops last year, we discussed the need to ensure a thriving Knaresborough for 2030. The conclusions are represented in this rich picture and show we identified 6 key areas needing further development and investment. The visitor economy, economic development, health and well-being, support for young people, more affordable housing, and arts and culture. Key to our aims is to give local people a voice and resources to develop local solutions that meet their needs. Next slide, please. So a couple of examples in terms of how we as a community are working together. The first one is environmental issues. The Town Council has a climate emergency subcommittee, and the councillors are working on a number of projects. Local people have done a phenomenal job raising money to buy 80 acres of land between Knaresborough and Harrogate, and have now joined in partnership with Longlands Commons Group to manage and protect a significant amount of green space between Knaresborough and Harrogate. There are a number of different groups looking at improving green spaces, increasing biodiversity across the town. The types of issues we face are congestion, which is a major concern for all residents, flooding, where we seem to get more and more events happening on a yearly basis. We've got no active travel strategy to get people, or active travel programme and strategy to get people out of their cars. And we've identified during COVID pandemic more needs to be done to improve the health of our residents. So examples of the types of projects our community are working on today are how community buildings can be used as a basis for green energy projects, improved management environments to the likes of public parks, and how the River Nid can be used as a source for green energy generation for the future. New slide, please. possible example of a success of a town could be measured in terms of the number of events held. Local community groups do a fantastic job in running events throughout the year, whether they range from events for Christmas or significant events through the summer holidays, or special events like the coronation or Remembrance Day. Knaresborough puts on a wide range of events every year. These events are enjoyed by local residents, but are a significant attraction to many visitors to the town. Next slide, please. The local economy is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face as a community. Local businesses are represented by 2 organisations. Currently, thank goodness, we have few shop vacancies, but for many years, our retail offering has gone through many boom and bust cycles. We have a number of small and medium-sized enterprises in the town, but we need more, and we need premises. This provision was intended to be provided significantly by the development of Flaxby and a smaller development at Mans Farm. To date, progress at Flaxby has moved at snail's pace, and there's no evidence of the Mans Farm project even getting started. As already highlighted, there's been a significant increase in tourist visitors to the town. But as North Yorkshire Council looks to develop a destination development strategy, it needs to recognise it's no good just increasing visitor numbers. If there isn't an equivalent strategy to improve town infrastructure, such as so that it could cope with an increased number of visitors. The strategy needs to include improved transport links between river and town, improved signage, improved street furniture, car parking strategy, and more hotel places. Next slide, please. We have made very limited progress with the double devolution agenda to date. The community anchor organisation has been selected. Knaresborough Town Council has submitted an expression of interest to be involved in the development and process procedures, that will allow town and parish councils to make bids for services and run assets in the future. We base this expression of interest on Knaresborough Market, and as I've already highlighted, the extensive work that we've put in to our community organisations and organisational development across the town means that we're community partnership ready. The Town Council has already started to make investments in the future, recruiting a new member of staff to focus on project development. But in the short-term double devolution programme is not the appropriate mechanism for North Yorkshire Council and Knaresborough Town Council to engage in more detailed discussions about opportunities for the management of assets within the town. Then we'd look to the Localism Act of 2011, perhaps as a basis for discussion around options for the potential transfer, say, of allotment sites, management of Knaresborough House, and management of Stockwell Community Centre, which is known as Knaresborough Wellbeing Hub. Next slide, please. I know you can't read it, but like any town and parish council, interested in opportunities that double devolution can open up. We've got, as a town council, we've got a long shopping list of both services and assets that we'd like to discuss with North Yorkshire over the coming years. Next slide, please. But we do recognise that double devolution is a programme that's going to span many years. We believe it's important to quickly identify some flagship services and assets that could be transferred to the Town Council. As an early adopter phase, it's vital that we identify a programme that cannot fail if we're going to keep community enthusiasm for this programme live. Residents have got to see positive results. The Town Council expects to take a pragmatic view to building up capacity, the third member staff being an example. But we do recognise that we need to walk before we can run, and we need to balance the services that a potential revenue generators with those that are going to be a potential cost to the town council. This assumes any transfer from North Yorkshire Council comes with funding to maintain the service or asset at the current service level that it's run at today. And where there is a potential to innovate on service transfer, the cost of the innovation can be justified and is taken only after full consultation with local residents. Next slide, please. The Town Council recognises we cannot develop double devolution agenda in isolation from the rest of the town. Success will only be achieved if the majority of people in the town are bought into the programme. So it's important that residents, businesses, the voluntary sector, this area committee, schools, neighbouring parishes and towns are all actively involved. It's only through partnership that this whole programme will ultimately be successful. Next slide. So what are the immediate issues that we face today? Lack of regular updates on double devolution from North Yorkshire, lack of engagement on key decisions being made by North Yorkshire Council that are directly impact Knaresborough. You've had examples today of the introduction of slow charging points into a short stay car park with little or no consultation with local businesses. And the appointment of an anchor organisation. I'm not questioning whether it was the right or wrong organisation, but there should have been discussions around that whole appointment with the Town Council. Who at North Yorkshire is responsible for a free economic development strategy for Knaresborough, given I've highlighted that's a significant issue to us? We're frustrated with the slow speed and complexity of decision making around planning 106 and SIL money and how that is invested in the local community. The very slow pace of development of a highway strategy in the town, particularly to start to address the congestion issues we face. The lack of no car parking strategy and the associated park and ride solution, and the slow pace of engagement with the Duchy over the renewal of the lease for the castle, which is now starting to threaten the ability of local groups to make funding applications and projects associated with the castle. And my final slide. So I'm asking this area committee, and through this committee, North Yorkshire Council, to listen and help where possible, help improve communication and engagement on double devolution. That this area committee conducts regular reviews on progress, identify who at North Yorkshire is directly responsible for economic development in Knaresborough, improved consultation on key decision makings that impact Knaresborough, support the Neighbourhood Development Plan programme as it goes through its Reg 16 consultation and beyond, support efforts to open up a dialogue with the Duchy on the renewal of the lease for the castle, or if the resources, time means that North Yorkshire Council can't take a lead in that, then endorse the Town Council working in partnerships with other local groups to undertake this work. Support Knaresborough to be included in the next phase of community partnerships, and finally to investigate potential for the use of more, for us to be more involved in the management of 106 money and SIL money. So thank you for your time and for listening to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Can I thank Councillor David Good for that presentation? Can I ask if there are any members have any questions for Knaresborough Town Council? For Councillor Good.
I've obviously energised them enthusiastically.
Sorry, can I just ask what exactly an anchor organisation is? That's not a term I've actually come across. Anchor.
It's part of North Yorkshire's community development strategy as part of the whole reorganisation that's taken place to lead community engagement across a range of programmes. North Yorkshire have appointed anchor organisations to take that leadership role, and we've got one of those already up, or starting to get up and running in Knaresborough.
So who makes up the anchor organisation then? Who are members?
So there was North Yorkshire asked for expressions of interest. I think Knaresborough, in the end, through consultation, through this community engagement, decided one organisation would take a lead in doing that. And that organisation that was successful at the end of the day is Chain Lane Community Hub.
Okay. Councillor Schofield.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David, for that presentation. You'd be pleased to know on your final point about the 106 money. I personally would like to thank Kate Dawson and team for pulling together all the individual divisional 106 reports that were distributed to each and every member here last week for their division. So at least now you do have that connection with both Hannah and Matt to actually look at your 106 monies and how that can be spent. So at least that that is one step forward already that you can tick off.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Lacey.
Well, on that point, Councillor Schofield, I would just say that that's only because Councillors Walker and Goslow are also on Knaresborough Town Council. That's not necessarily always going to be the case in the future. I think what Councillor Good is asking for is Knaresborough Town Councillors.
That may well be the case, but the steps have already been taken, so they're in a very fortunate position that that's the case, aren't they?
Okay, we'll agree to disagree. I just want to say that I do think that Knaresborough Town Council do a really, really good job for their residents. And as a Harrogate resident, I often take advantage of the many activities that are put on in Knaresborough with my family. And I'm really looking forward to Harrogate having a town council and being able to continue the work that Knaresborough does, or mirror the work that Knaresborough does. I think it's really fantastic.
Thank you for that, and I hope we set a good example that a future town council in Harrogate could adopt. Thank you.
Councillor Haslam.
Thank you for your presentation, Councillor Good. If I look at your last slide, I actually believe we do the majority of this already, so I am a little confused. I liked your presentation. One of the things I do know is Knaresborough's in the Doomsday Book, as is Bilton, which Harrogate isn't in the Doomsday Book because Harrogate is a relatively new invention. We share, sort of the residents of Bilton share quite a lot of interest with Knaresborough. But I do believe that as councillors, we actually do look at these issues for not just Knaresborough, but for all other areas that we look at. However, I do thank you for the pack and the various things there. One of my questions is, what's the precept per person as a result for Knaresborough Town Council?
I think it's in the order of about £23 per house per year. I can't remember to the point, whatever.
Okay. I should declare an interest there, being a Knaresborough resident. It is quite reasonable, I have to say, for all the other things that you do deliver. Have we any recommendations as a result of the presentation? Councillor Lacey.
Just, I suppose, to respond and having declared the interest of being embedded within the Knaresborough system, despite being a divisional councillor for a very worthy Harrogate division. Paul, I'm not sure that all the points on that last slide are really there. I've experienced, and I will just take one example because it's close to my heart in terms of some of the shared prosperity funding that Knaresborough has secured that may be wasted if there is no conversation with the Duchy on the renewal of the lease. For example, this is a critical element. Nobody will invest in the castle top without a long-term lease, and this has been on the agenda, if you like, for many, many years. And I know how frustrating a number of the community organisations feel. The Castle Working Group, which is part of Knaresborough Town Council, the newly formed Knaresborough Museum Association, who've gone out of their way to try and engage with the heritage offer, formerly of Harrogate Borough Council. And I can tell you very strongly that the community groups in Knaresborough feel that they're hitting their head against a brick wall with respect to the Duchy conversation, because it just isn't happening. And it will be a waste of money. We are looking at spending tens of thousands of pounds doing feasibility studies in Knaresborough to better use that heritage quarter. And nobody will invest in the castle top if there is not active conversation with the Duchy. So I know Councillor Good knows that I'm passionate about that one, because it will unleash an awful lot of goodwill, and it isn't happening. I won't go through the others because I think there is good purpose for the points that David's made. I just wish, as I think Monica's sentiments were, that Harrogate, in acquiring a town council, can mirror, learn from, and I think these are all very reasonable requests that I hope this ACC will support.
Councillor Walker.
So I suppose, first of all, I'm very lucky to be a councillor in Knaresborough, and there's probably not very many councillors that have a castle in their division. I have talked to the executive member of the executive about the extension of that lease. I'm still waiting for an update, so I'm quite happy to have another conversation with the executive member to see if any progress has been made. So I'm happy to be that conduit if people are happy with me to do that between North Yorkshire and the Town Council, almost as a self-appointed champion, if people feel comfortable with that. And I suppose the other thing that I'm quite happy to take a keen interest in is the supporting the economic development. I've had a number of local shops recently that have kind of struggled with some of the things, and perhaps I can see why there has been a little bit of a bust and boom. We're really lucky that we've got some really great shops at the minute, some obviously really long standing, but there is that cycle, and at the minute there's lots of shops that are coming into the town, but some of them are struggling, and one of them in particular has come and talked to me and talked to the MP about some of the issues that they're facing. So again, I'm quite happy to try and be the conduit between the Town Council and North Yorkshire.
Can I just ask, are those two recommendations that you're going to put to the committee so they can vote on?
So I can put them as a recommendation that I'm a champion, if that's a way of describing it, for supporting economic development between North Yorkshire and the Town Council, and again for the Duchy lease.
Thank you. Councillor Gosler.
Sorry to repeat myself again, but if a Knaresborough Town Councillor has come with the issues in the report and the asks, and Councillor Haslam is saying that this work is being done, the issue seems to be engagement and communication. So let's learn from the mistakes of the past and try and work to address this and get our Town Council engaged and communicating with North Yorkshire and vice versa, so that we can address some of the issues that are affecting our community in Knaresborough.
So is that the third part of a recommendation then? We've had two from Councillor Walker, and then we add that one to it as a recommendation.
Thank you.
Councillor Haslam.
I would hope that Councillor Walker is championing, he doesn't need our permission to champion the economic development of Knaresborough as far as I'm concerned. I think he, just as I wouldn't ask him to champion Bilton, I'd be very grateful for it. But I do think that Matt is a very competent councillor. I don't think he necessarily needs our endorsement. Of course, I always support anything that can help in this area. But I don't think he needs us to tell him that he can be champion. I believe he is the champion for that area of economic development and all things that relate to his residents. So, I would just say, yeah, keep going.
But this is about making it official that you actually are doing this as being an ACC member that is what we're doing, isn't it? Okay, would you like to sort of just summarise those 3 recommendations you want to put to the ACC then, please, including the point that Hannah's added to?
So I suppose in summary, so it's been the link between Knaresborough Town Council and North Yorkshire for supporting economic development and working with a named officer once we find out who that person is. And again, linking with the officer responsible for negotiating the lease on the castle for an extension.
Councillor Gosler, did you want to?
To strengthen the communication and engagement from North Yorkshire through this area committee to the Town Council.
Are you both moving and seconding those as recommended? Any further debate? If not, we'll go straight to the vote. No? All those in favour of the recommendation put before you? Nine for. Any against? Any abstentions? I think that's one abstention. Thank you. That's passed. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor. Now we come to the review of the petition for a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour on roads in South and West Harrogate to improve road safety. I sort of have to declare an interest here because I have been involved, so I might hand over to my Vice Chairman to take this on.
Okay, if I could invite Hazel Peacock from the Oaklands and Panel Ash Road Safety and Active Travel Campaign to read out a statement, please.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Slater. I'm Hazel Peacock, and this is Jenny Marks. We're from the Oaklands and Panel Ash Road Safety and Active Travel Campaign. We are delighted that last week 2 great milestones were achieved in the journey towards safer and healthier streets for our community. The school street pilot at Beechwood Grove by Oaklands Junior School was launched, and Councillor Duncan announced the plans to deliver our proposals for 20 miles an hour across South and West Harrogate, as supported by this committee. Both are brilliant responses to the calls for action by the community, schools and cross-party councillors who have supported the campaigns, especially Councillors Marsh, Mann, Schofield and Warnacombe. We thank them and also Councillor Duncan, Melissa Burnham and Alan McVeigh for their work. Since the school street began, the experience of the school run has been transformed. Pupils and families are now able to access the school safely and independently on foot and bike. It was described by one resident as sheer bliss. Just as the benefits of the school street pilot are transformative, the ambitious plan for 20 miles an hour in the proposal could radically improve the safety and daily experiences of thousands of children and wider community. To achieve this, we are asking Hookstone Road, Hookstone Drive, Leadhall Lane, part of Leeds Road, Otley Road, Wetherby Road, York Place and Beech Grove, a residential road, are included in the consultation as 20 miles an hour. While North Yorkshire guidance identifies Category 2 roads as not appropriate for 20 miles an hour, most of the criteria is amply satisfied, so network hierarchy alone is not an overwhelming barrier to their inclusion. This approach has been followed in a multitude of locations in the UK, including Thirsk, Otley, the city centres of Leeds, Nottingham, Manchester, Glasgow and London, and in rural villages in Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire, to name a few. The inclusion of these roads is vital because Hookstone Road has a mean speed of 38 miles an hour and evidence of higher exceedances. The proposed markings and signing is insufficient to ensure the safety of children using it to attend Oatlands Infant School, Oatlands Junior School, Harrogate College, St John Fisher's and St Aidan's. Oatlands Infant School sits directly on Hookstone Road. One of its entrances is directly onto the road next to the crossing, which bottlenecks, making it very unsafe. Oatlands Junior School sits off Hookstone Road. Families with children at both the infants and juniors walk and cycle between the two schools along Hookstone Road. St John Fisher School is on Hookstone Drive. Its pupils walk between Leeds Road via Hookstone Road to the school, as well as nearby St Aidan's, navigating the bridge across Crimplebeck with an inadequate pavement only on one side. Otley Road has an entrance into Harrogate Grammar School, used by hundreds of pupils, with very large groups gathering and walking, particularly between Panelash Crescent and West Park Avenue. Leeds Road, section from Marks and Spencer's, is a high footfall area with shops, car parking, cafes and a GP practice. It is a key route for school children, pedestrians and cyclists, and has 2 crossings, one of which is very precarious for pedestrians and drivers. Leadhall Lane, Rosser Green Lane, is used by pupils to go to schools, and 20 miles an hour would improve safety and continuity of 20 miles an hour from Yew Tree Lane and Green Lane. I'm almost finished. Wetherby Road has a hospital, football stadium, primary school and GP practice on it. Beech Grove is used as a rat run and has a potential as a key active travel route. When we consider the TfL data that people hit by a vehicle at 20 miles an hour are around 5 times less likely to be killed than at 30, the case for including these roads as 20 miles an hour is clear and is critical for safety, enabling more walking and cycling and improving the environment and a sense of place for our children and community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And can I now invite Dr. Jenny Marks to make her statement, please?
Yes, thank you. I'll use yours. For giving us the opportunity to deliver another statement. Firstly, I'd really like to reiterate our thanks regarding the very positive steps which have been made towards safer streets and healthier communities. With the Beechwood Grove School Street pilot and the 20-mile-per-hour zone plans, which will be presented by North Yorkshire Council in today's meeting. Having studied the detail of the reports to be presented today, we support the majority of the proposals, absolutely. But in addition to those mentioned by Hazel, there are some important changes which we would strongly advocate. The crossings proposed on Coldbath Road and Green Lane should be controlled crossings, giving priority to the pedestrian rather than to cars. A simple build-out as proposed may be cheaper, but is much less effective in keeping children and others safe. Furthermore, a build-out already exists on Green Lane at or near the proposed new build-out location. A controlled crossing should be included for Yew Tree Lane. This could be located to link with the public right-of-way. Currently, there are no controlled crossings outside Ashville or Rossett High, on Green Lane or Yew Tree Lane. A controlled crossing should be included also on Hookstone Road, leading to the bridle path, given that a signalised crossing is not possible here. The £200,000 allocated for improving the junction at Otley Road to improve traffic flow should include measures to accommodate active travel, in keeping with the intended purpose of the National Productivity Investment Fund. We would like to suggest that perhaps it should be considered whether some of this money would be better spent improving the sustainable travel infrastructure elsewhere, given the large proportion of the available NPIF funding that this constitutes. We wish to note that the Nursery Lane path already provides a safe off-road route for active travel, so the £100,000 allocated to that element of work might be better spent providing controlled crossings or other infrastructure where needed, particularly given the doubt as to its viability due to the need for third-party agreement. Significantly, we would like to see a commitment to enforcement of the 20-mile-per-hour zone from North Yorkshire Police. Without this, the scheme is much less likely to be successful. We would like to see an enforcement plan developed and shared by North Yorkshire Council, North Yorkshire Police and other relevant parties. Lastly, we ask for North Yorkshire Council to provide a comprehensive programme of delivery for the plan for the 20-mile-per-hour zone and infrastructure improvements. including consultation timings and design development, to ensure the delivery of these ambitious measures at the earliest possible date. We hope that you will support these requests, and we look forward to continuing to work with Cian Duncan, North Yorkshire Council staff, councillors and the community on the specifics of the plan to ensure the very best possible outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Warnecan, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
No, I just realised it's not a question. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay, so then can I invite Hazel Peacock to read out a statement from Christopher Harrison, the head teacher for Oatlands Infant School, who couldn't make it today. Thank you.
Hello. Hi again. So I'm reading out the statement on behalf of Christopher Harrison. Thank you. My name is Christopher Harrison and I am the newly appointed head teacher at Oatlands Infant School. For those present who are not aware of our school's location, we can be found on the corner of Hookstone Road and Cromwell Road. Oatlands Infant School educates approximately 260 pupils between the ages of 4 and 7, making it one of the larger primary age schools in Harrogate. As head teacher of Oatlands Infant School, I find Hookstone Road to be a great source of anxiety. Our children, parents and carers wait at our school gates at the start and end of the school day, and the proximity of traffic makes this a potentially dangerous time. Many of our families walk or cycle to school, and there have been near misses in the past. The crossing on Hookstone Road is also very close to our school gates, which creates a pinch point as people cross the road and wait at the gates. When we open the gates, there are often many families waiting outside school, and I believe that reducing the speed limit on Hookstone Road to 20 miles an hour would have a significant impact on health and safety of these people at these times. We do our best to educate the children in our care with regard to road safety, and we are proud of how mature they can be. However, the local traffic is beyond their control. According to several sources, including research by the Welsh Government, in the distance a 20 mile an hour car can stop, a 30 miles per hour car will still be doing 24 miles per hour. From the international evidence base, it can be concluded on average that a person is around 5 times more likely to be killed when hit by a vehicle travelling at around 30 miles an hour than they are from a vehicle travelling around 20. Reductions from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour in areas in London have shown a 25% reduction in road traffic collisions, alongside a similar reduction in fatal road accidents. We also need to bear in mind that many motorists do not adhere to the 30 mile an hour speed limit already in place on Hookstone Road, making the statistics above a very conservative estimate. To reduce the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour on Hookstone Road and to enforce it suitably will have an immediate and positive impact on the health and safety of the young pupils in our care, as well as those in the many schools and nurseries in the local area and the broader community around Hookstone Road. Thank you, Christopher Harrison, head teacher at Oatlands Infant School.
And would you also like to read out a statement from Steve Mort, head teacher at St John Fisher Catholic High School?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Slater. So this is on behalf of Steve Mort at St John Fisher's. My name is Steve Mort and I'm the head teacher at St John Fisher's Catholic High School. The school is located on Hookstone Drive, close to the junction with Oatlands Drive. We have approximately 1,500 students on roll. The St John Fisher and St Aidan's Associated Sixth Form is the largest school sixth form in the country, with approximately 1,000 students on roll. Sixth form staff and students from both schools move between the two school sites throughout the day, which requires them using the crossing at Hookstone Road. At these times, the crossing can be very congested. Drivers, unfortunately, do not always adhere to the traffic light signals due to them travelling along Hookstone Drive at excessive speed and/or where they see an opportunity to jump them. The crossing on Hookstone Drive is in front of the school gates and is adjacent to the very busy bus bay. The school is serviced by 12 double-decker buses, some of which use the bus bay in a morning and afternoon. In addition, we have buses that enter and leave the school drive at these times. This results in the area around the crossing, particularly the footpath, becoming very congested. Consequently, the start and end of the school day is a potentially dangerous time. Many of our staff and students walk or cycle to school. The crossing on Hookstone Drive creates a pinch point as people cross the road and wait at the gates. There have been accidents involving both staff and students being knocked off their bikes on Hookstone Drive when drivers have failed to adhere to the traffic light signals or exceeded the current 30 miles an hour limit. There have also been several near misses where students have not used the crossing due to the congestion. I believe that reducing the speed limit on Hookstone Drive to 20 miles an hour would have a significant impact on the health and safety of these people at these times. I'm just going to, some of the statistics are similar, so I'm just going to go straight down to the conclusion. So Mr. Mort says that, we also need to bear in mind that many motorists do not adhere to the 30 mile an hour speed limit already in place on Hookstone Road. So to reduce the speed limit from 30 to 20 on Hookstone Drive and to enforce it suitably would have an immediate positive impact of the students in their care and at St Aidan's Church of England School. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe you have one more statement.
That's my final one.
Okay.
So this one is from Estelle Scarth and Andrew Morley. So Estelle Scarth is head teacher at Oatlands Junior School and Andrew Morley is the deputy head there. The many families and children attending Oatlands Junior School use Hookstone Road as part of their journey to school. Oatlands Junior School is situated at the end of Beechwood Grove. Just to mention, that's a cul-de-sac for anyone who doesn't know it. Children and families also use the bridle way that starts on Hookstone Road between Beechwood Grove and Halstead Road. Oatlands Junior School educates approximately 360 pupils between the ages of 7 and 11. A significant number of children attending Oatlands Junior School have siblings at Oatlands Infant School, which is situated on Hookstone Road. Therefore, families with children attending both schools use Hookstone Road and the pedestrian crossing at Hookstone Avenue. As head teacher of Oatlands Junior School, I am aware of the safety concerns regarding traffic on Hookstone Road. With the school's street initiative on Beechwood Grove, families are encouraged to walk or cycle to school. However, Hookstone Road is not a safe route for children to cycle along. Reducing the speed limit on Hookstone Road to 20 miles an hour would create a safer environment to encourage more families to cycle or scoot to school. There is no cycle lane on Hookstone Road at the junction with Beechwood Grove. We have a wide range of learning opportunities built into our curriculum to ensure children can be as safe as possible as they travel around our local area. This includes bikeability training. Many children are enthusiastic about cycling to school once their training is complete. Parents, however, aware of the potential hazards of traffic on Hookstone Road, are often reluctant to allow children to use their bikes to travel to school. And I'm just going to also skip down to the final point here as well. Suitably enforcing a reduction in the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour on Hookstone Road would have an immediate and positive impact on the health and safety of the children in our care. Kindest regards, Estelle Scarth, head teacher, Oatlands Junior School.
Thank you very much. I now invite Dr. Jenny Marks to read out a statement from Neil Renton, the head teacher at Harrogate Grammar School.
Yeah, this is a statement from Neil Renton. Again, he couldn't be here today. I would like to put forward my support as the head teacher of Harrogate Grammar School for 20 mile per hour limits near our school and also include Otley Road. I absolutely support the landmark scheme put forward and hope that this pioneering initiative will also include Otley Road. Harrogate Grammar School is a very large secondary school with over 2,100 students. The large number of students leaving the site at the start and end of the school, in my view, would make it entirely sensible to reduce the speed limit also on Otley Road, a road directly next to the school where students enter, leave and cross. Our duty staff see the need for this daily when supervising children. As a school, we fully support the reduction in the speed limit for the safety of the children in our local community and hope you will also include Otley Road. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And I think you've got one more statement, is that right? From Tim Broad, the head teacher of Weston Primary School.
Yeah, we've got many hats today. I should have brought some. Dear councillors, thank you for giving me the opportunity to have my thoughts considered at your meeting today. My understanding of the council's plans is that they propose creating a build-out, uncontrolled crossing point adjacent to my school. Having done a little research on this, I gather that an uncontrolled crossing amounts to an informal crossing point, which may include dropped curbs, tactile paving and such like, but with no compulsion for vehicles to stop to allow pedestrians to cross. A build-out is a section of curb or footway extended into the carriageway on one side to narrow the road. They can reduce crossing distances and improve visibility for pedestrians. I would be interested to know the precise location of this development and the timescale for completion. Obviously, I support any measure which results in improved safety for our children and road users in general. I would like it to be noted, however, that I would prefer a controlled crossing, as this will be much safer. With an uncontrolled crossing, children will still be dependent upon drivers being aware and considerate, as there will be no compulsion for them to stop to allow people to cross at this point. This is also something we would have to make very clear to our pupils to ensure that they don't have the expectation that vehicles will stop. There is a clear risk here if some of our pupils mistakenly believe that vehicles will stop when they are crossing at this point. A zebra crossing, for example, would be a much safer solution and would provide a safe crossing point for those pupils who usually walk down Coldbath Road to the north to get to their homes. With regard to the built-out aspect of the proposal, I have significant concerns about the impact of the potential narrowing on an already narrow and busy road. Due to the parking bays opposite school, there is insufficient room as things currently stand for two large vehicles to pass each other safely at this point. The same is true just below school, where there is parking on both sides of the road. This invariably leads to one vehicle stopping to allow the other through. To deliberately further narrow the road at any point will result in significant congestion, with many more vehicles stationary outside the school, emitting pollution and further damaging the air quality. This congestion will also lead to frustration for drivers, which is not a healthy emotion for anyone in charge of a vehicle. I do accept that the installation of a controlled crossing at this point will also create congestion, and it is perhaps time to consider longer-term plans for reducing the amount of traffic on Coldbath Road at key times during the day. I feel as though this proposal for the crossing is based more on economic concerns rather than the safety of children, and would urge the council to rethink their plans. Kind regards, Tim Broad. Thank you.
Thank you. There will now be a short statement read out by Mark, and then Melissa Burnham will be presenting her report, and after that we will take a short comfort break, just to let members know. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that officers would like to thank all those who have submitted statements in relation to the report for the review of the petition for a maximum speed of 20 mile an hour on roads in South and West Harrogate to improve road safety. All feedback will be taken into consideration where it is feasible. A response to items raised will be addressed as part of the report presentation. Anything regarding further detail can be provided in writing following the meeting.
Okay, so can I switch over to you, Melissa? Are you ready to summarise your report?
Yeah, could we have Yes, please. Yeah, thank you. Just have the plan up on the screen just so we can refer to that because it just makes it easier to explain. That's okay. Albeit small, we can see the colours, so that's great. Thank you. Okay, thank you. The purpose of the report today is to present members of the Harrogate and Area Constituency Committee with officer findings and proposed actions following the review of the petition received on the 8th of June 2023 for a maximum speed of 20 mile an hour on roads in the South and West Harrogate to improve road safety. Members' feedback is sought today. Local road safety campaigners presented a petition with over 900 signatures to the Harrogate and Knaresborough Area Constituency Committee on the 8th of June. The petition requested a maximum speed of 20 mile an hour for roads in the south and west of Harrogate across Oatlands and St George's. Members at that committee resolved to endorse the petition on the 8th of June. The review area can be seen on the plan and enclosed in the report on Appendix 1 and 2. This is Appendix 2 that we've displayed here today. The blue area demonstrates the plan, the review area that was put forward in the petition. This covers Oatlands, Hookstone, St George's and Leeds Road area of Harrogate. Alongside the residential roads, we've also got a number of strategic principal roads in there, the A661 Weatherby Road, A61 Leeds Road and the A6040 York Place. And these are highlighted in red. There are 6 schools within the blue area, and there are a number of amenities including the Stray, the Harrogate Showground, the Showground Greenaway, cycle routes, Hookstone Wood, local bridleways, Harrogate Town Football Club and the hospital are located just outside of the review area, but nevertheless they are a destination very close by on Weatherby Road and have been considered as part of their review. The highlighted area in yellow has also been brought to the attention of both officers and the Area Constituency Committee by the local campaign group, and as a result, this has also been included in the review today. Within the blue and the yellow review area, there are existing 20 mile an hour signed only areas. These are labelled green on the plan today, if you can see them. We have Panelash Road, Hookstone Road, Wood Road, and there are areas of Coalbath Road that also have a 20 mile an hour existing on there. A review has been undertaken in accordance with North Yorkshire Council's 20 mile an hour speed limit and zone policy 2022 and in accordance with national guidance set out in the Department of Transport Circular 01/2013 setting local speed limits. Both desktop reviews and site visits have been carried out using this guidance as represented in 5.13 of North Yorkshire Council's policy. There are a number of issues taken into consideration that are presented within this policy, and that criteria has been used. And this is outlined in paragraph 4.1 of the report. In terms of the data collection, to support the observation, officers have reviewed speed data. We've collected this via the Council's permanent traffic counters. 5.1 highlights the speeds over 24 miles an hour, which are mean speeds. There is an anomaly in there, which some of you may have spotted, which is Arthur's Avenue, which their mean speed for 2019 is highlighted on there as 19, not over 24. When we looked at that counter is actually located close to the Otley Road junction. The 85th percentile speed is sat around about 23. So it is something that we're going to look at. It may be that we need traffic calming on that route, but we're going to look at that further. So for that reason, we've included it in this list, also recognising that it obviously does host Harrogate Grammar School. A significant number of pupils go there. Officers have reviewed the speed data and the accident details of which can be found in Table 1. Officers have carried out the observational assessments and engaged with local community groups and the schools within the area. A number of considerations have been taken into account with existing active travel projects. Also, they're listed in Table 2, but they include Active Travel Fund, Transforming Cities Fund, Oatlands Feasibility Study, and the existing National Productivity Investment Delivery schemes already. of which we have a report following this agenda, I believe, regarding the Otley Road Sustainable Transport. As well as the larger active travel projects, there are further measures that have been addressed and agreed following a number of road safety campaign meetings with the road safety campaigners and the schools. These include Oatlands Drive, crossings on Oatlands Drive and Weatherby Road. It includes the commitment to the school streets pilot, which is obviously underway. It includes the implementation of additional yellow lines on Hookstone Drive and Hookstone Road, Birchwood Mews and Cromwell Road. It includes lining refresh on Hookstone Road and Hookstone Drive. And it also includes the maintenance and review of the tactile paving, tactile crossings and the gullies within the area, recognising the walking route between the Oatlands School and the infant school. So we wanted to make some improvements there to make that route more attractive. They're committed and they're ongoing, either works ordered or in progress. We've also made commitments to improve the bridleway behind the Oatlands Junior School. We have actually had some volunteers to cut the vegetation back there. I understand it needs doing again, which we're organising. We're looking at the surface there in terms of where the, just near the allotment entrance, there's an empty culvert there that we're looking at trying to resurface and flatten the house a little bit to make the route a bit more attractive as well. As part of the sustainable transport package, it is recommended that 20 mile an hour is to be implemented the full length of Coalbath Road and the side roads. It's also including Beech Grove, and this table 3 references the proposals in that package. So they're not highlighted on the plan, but they're surrounded in the green area there, and that will be referenced in the following report for the sustainable transport Otley Road package. Arthur's Avenue is also included in there, as I've mentioned. Panelash Road is proposed to be included in Highways Capital Works Programme. That's been put forward for resurfacing and the introduction of traffic calming measures. We're still waiting for approval on that, and that should be towards the end of this year in terms of approval for funding for that. There are a number of road categories, varying road categories that we've looked at. Weatherby Road, Leeds Road, York Place, Otley Road and Hookstone Road Drive are recognised as strategic and highlighted on the plan. And for this reason, we are not proposing to introduce 20 mile an hour on these sections of roads. These are highlighted on red on the plan. The reason for that is that in line with both our policy and national guidance, function is a key consideration within these documents, and these are heavily trafficked strategic roads that carry a significant volume, which is the reason why we're not proposing the 20 mile an hour today in our recommendation. We do recognise that there's a secondary school on Hookstone Road. Mean speed here has been recorded as 30 mile an hour. That's been recorded this summer, so August 2023. To implement a 20 mile an hour on this road would require traffic calming, but due to the volume and the function and the recognised link between Leeds Road and Weatherby Road, it is not recommended that the speed limit is reduced here. We have committed to introducing, along with the measures that we've already introduced and I've explained, we have committed to introducing a review of the route, such as improving the signing and lining at this location. As part of the petition details, the crossing points within the petition have been recognised, and these can be found in Table 4 of the report. This includes Hookstone Road, opposite the Hookstone Bridleway crossing. We have, again, committed to a crossing point here, should a footpath be approved opposite the road into the parkland. So that's ongoing, but it's something that we're willing to pick up in the future should we need to. So the proposed recommendation, the review recognised a high density of schools and community facilities and active travel links within the area. And having regard to our statutory duty in section 122 of the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984, it is concluded that a reduced speed limit across the residential roads in the plan, highlighted in both the blue and the yellow areas, would have a positive impact on road safety, as well as contributing to the creation of active travel, placemaking and creating a safer environment that encourages sustainable travel modes for families such as wheeling, walking and cycling. It is recommended that those in pink should be implemented with 20 mile an hour but are considered for traffic calming schemes. It is recommended that the residential streets in blue and yellow, highlighted on the plan, are signed only 20-mile-an-hour schemes with associated lining. So that would be 20-mile-an-hour roundels on access and entry points. It is not recommended that 20-mile-an-hour is implemented on the strategic routes for the reasons explained within the report, and those are highlighted on red. Regarding next steps, the recommendations will go to North Yorkshire Council's Environment Corporate Director and Executive Member for Highways and Transportation, seeking an approval to commence implementation. This report will identify indicative programmes. It will also identify necessary consultation that needs to take place, particularly regarding the required traffic regulation orders to implement the legalities of these proposals. Consideration has been given to equalities implications, and equalities impact assessment screening form can be found within the report. Funding for the Road Safety Improvement Scheme has been considered as part of annual highways capital programmes, and the cost implications of this proposal set out within the report will be met by the existing budgets within that capital programme. It should, however, be noted that the 20-mile-an-hour on Coalbath Road and Arthurs Avenue will be funded through the MPIF National Productivity Investment Fund, or are proposed to be on the Otley Road Sustainable Transport Package. That will be explained in the following report. In terms of legal implications, clearly the traffic regulation orders will need to be adhered to, and the legal process will need to take place for that. Climate change impact assessment has also been included and considered within the report. The recommendation today is that the members consider the proposals and provide the officers with relevant feedback to take forward in preparation for the exec members' report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. It looks like people are wanting to jump straight in, but can I suggest that we just take a short break and then come back and do questions and have a debate? Because write it down. Write it down. If we get into it, that's the problem. We'll be, yeah. Okay, so can I suggest that we take, I don't know how long how members want, is 5 minutes enough, or? Yeah, let's take 5-minute break. Thank you. Is everybody ready to resume the meeting? Okay, so I would now like to start the debate, or if there are any questions for Melissa on her report. Councillor Warnigan.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a problem regarding item 7 and item 8 having sort of some common aspects to them. So I'm going to ask this question, or some questions, and then I might have to ask them again of a different officer. I mean, I know I'm not going to get into debate, it's specifically questions, so I'm going to just stick with that and then have my time later. It stimulated some thoughts about the council's plans going forward. And one of the things I'm really concerned about is that when I last asked this question, the answer was nothing had happened. So the first question is, have we now got an active travel team in place? Second question is probably to the climate champion. Can we work at changing the terminology on the report when it talks about that has no adverse impact on the climate? Because I think credit where credit's due. Can we not say also has a benefit what we're proposing as well? Because I think that is something, you know, we should give ourselves some applaud when we actually had taken measures that improve the environment and climate, not just note that it has no adverse impact. The next question is about the data collection on Hookstone Drive. My understanding is that it was in August, and I feel that maybe that's not a good time to collect data because it's the school holidays. So that's the questions that I was just going to ask. Thank you. That's Melissa, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you. Active travel team hasn't yet been set up, but as you're aware, there is a commitment to do so. I haven't got a date yet in terms of when that will be set up. Like I say, that commitment is there. It's a good point about the climate change. We'll take that back in terms of the reports in future. We'll take that back to the team. And again, that's a very good point about Hookstone Drive. Clearly, we've been doing this review over the summer. We wanted to get some figures, so we did it within August. But you're right, it isn't a neutral month because of the schools were on holiday, for example. So we will look to be doing further surveys on there. But for the purpose of this exercise, we conducted that in August because that's the only month we had. So.
Thank you for that, Melissa. I would say there's a sense of urgency then being doing new data for Hookstone Drive because the whole picture is before us at the moment, and obviously people have a different picture about what should be done going forward, and I think that data is critical for that picture to be formed. And then the active travel team, I'm going to put my neck on the block. If you're struggling for people to take part in it, I'll do it. Okay. Because that's all for me. You know, what the only reason it can be is that nobody's come forward or nobody's been appointed. Engage with members. I'm sure there's members that know enough about active travel to actually put a positive input into that. And I don't want any money for it either.
Okay, Councillor Schofield.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you, Melissa and Heather, for this report and all the hard work you put into it. As you know, I'm fully supporting of this scheme. But having said that, the unmanned crossings on Corbath Road and outside Ashville College, which have already been mentioned, they do concern me gravely as the busy roads and still asking youngsters to dice with traffic. You just need to look down Otley Road near the Prince of Wales roundabout, where there is one of these unmanned crossings, and it goes to prove that traffic rarely stop for pedestrians. My inbox is full of people around that area asking for that area to be improved, but that's in the next report. But it does show that zebra crossings are more effective. Adding to that, I would like to reiterate what Jenny Marks said about a controls crossing being put on the yew tree lane, which would then connect, because you can go through Ashville College, which is a public right-of-way, and they have said that they will move that so it joins up, and they're prepared to fund that. I gather, was that right, Jenny?
They said they're happy to do this.
Yeah, so if we could look at maybe putting that one on New Tree Lane, I do agree with that. Having spoken to residents, as I have in the last couple of days, I've got a few questions I would like to ask as well on their behalf. As you know, I would normally email you them, but these have literally just come to me in the last 24 hours. The first one being, is there documented proof that changes was... The reason I'm asking these as well, by the way, is because I don't have the answers. It's one that I couldn't back. Is there documented proof that the changes will result in good compliance without the reliance of police enforcement, as is claimed? And then also, can the general public have reassurances that there are no plans to bring in recognition cameras to support this scheme? I'll just ask these questions. Number 3, as Beech Grove, whilst not in my division, a resident did stop me in the street and ask, are there any intentions of introducing traffic calming on Beech Grove? And finally, on to Arthur's Avenue, is there an opportunity to make the side roads resident-only parking to reduce the amount of cars using those Arthur's Avenue? Thank you.
Do you want to respond, Melissa?
I will do my best where I can. We may have to provide some further information following the meeting, but certainly in terms of the police enforcement side, one of the reasons why, and I perhaps should have explained this within the presentation, but one of the reasons why we have identified certain areas as requiring traffic calming is so that actually this plan is self-enforcing. So the idea is it should be self-enforcing without that need, and it's very clear within the guidance nationally that actually the schemes that are put in should really be self-enforcing. So this is why we have a mix of actually signed only and proposed traffic calming, so that we can ensure that. In terms of the recognition cameras, that's certainly not something that we've discussed to date or within this plan or proposal. Beech Grove, there will be no proposed traffic calming on there. I think that was quite clear, detailed on the plan. And Arthur's Avenue, we'll take that back and have a look, and appreciate that feedback. That's something we can look into.
Thank you. Councillor Haslam.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've got a couple of sort of observations, and hopefully other members of the group may well support these particular things that have come into me from in my regular fan mail, which I know we all get. First of all, my first point is that actually on the agenda we've got items 7, 8 and 9, and I think there is a holistic view that needs to be taken. So my first point is that this is great. It's a small piece. In actual fact, it covers 2/3 of the pupils in Harrogate. So it is a significant number, 16,000 pupils in this area, roughly speaking. But I think we just have to have an holistic approach, and we perhaps have to say, yes, we'll do this, and maybe we have to, then we say, well, what can we learn from this, and how do we move it out and expand it? Because I know there's not an unlimited pot of money. My concerns about the particular things that are being put in front of us, I've had, and it's the cycling community that have said this to me. So I'm shocked, because they'd love to see the council spending money. They've said, and I quote, no, I better not, the £100,000 proposal for Nursery Lane is a complete waste of money, and that because that lane is already safe to cycle down, therefore maybe that money could be used elsewhere, perhaps to make some of the crossings, because my next concern is that unpoliced crossings, and I use policed as in whether it's a zebra or whether it's a push-buttony thing, I think they are perhaps it's better spent there. So I'm proposing some money being redirected to that. And then the other thing that there is, you're talking about a cycle signage review, which we did one in 2014, and maybe it does need an update, but does it need a £25,000 update? Will be the question. So really, those are the points that I'd hope that the rest of the committee might support me on, in terms of certainly redirecting the money. I think there's some very valid points about expanding the area, but I think we should. You know what you've got to be able to, what you can deliver in what time frame, and I think we have to have a pragmatic approach. Is what gets delivered rather than try and, I think imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Warnican?
Yeah, I just want to be treated as an equal, actually, because I got told I have to ask questions and not make any statements, so I ask questions. So I'm going to make a statement now, if that's allowed. Yeah. I really welcome the quality of this report we've had, and I do think we should stand up and say, look at this, we're doing our bit for active travel, for the environment, but I think our bit isn't enough in this proposal, and I'd like the executive to consider a more reaching proposal. Now, I know that the campaigns group has mentioned quite a list of roads. I don't know enough about every road there, but I have in history as a former pupil of St John Fisher's, and the first year that went to join the joint sixth form, where I had that luxury of having to cross the road and backwards and forwards maybe 6 or 7 times a day because of different lessons in different schools, to know that it's when one of my colleagues got killed at the age of 17 on the road, that it has been a problem for a long time. Not as long as it might look. I haven't aged well. So I would like Hookstone Road to be included in this scheme and ask the executive to do so. If it involves traffic calming measures, then I know it has implications financially and to the budget, so I would ask them to look at ways of funding that. I'd also ask for some more detailed consideration for Leadhall Lane, because at one point it showed that the mean speed limit on Leadhall Lane was 30/35 with an 85 percentile of 40/40, although I believe that NYC has done data since and it would suggest that that's 38. The police who actually wanted to enforce the speed limit on Leadhall Lane, but the mechanism was to put a mobile vehicle on there, and the road doesn't lend itself to that. So if they can't do something about it that's been recognised, I think ethically we should try and do something about it. And one thing we can do, of course, is give it more serious consideration to making it 20 miles per hour. The reality with all of this is you aren't going to get people going out on their bicycles or walking if it's not safe for them to do so. And I just think we have an opportunity here to say we are serious about active travel, and climate change, because, the knock-on effect. And also we're serious about well-being, because somewhere in this, I would like us to give serious consideration to the changes that we're proposing, and maybe it should be in the report, as one of the things we've considered, is the well-being of people due to their air quality improvement. So maybe we should be thinking, right, let's do an air quality test before we introduce all these schemes around here, and let's that continue to be monitored, live monitoring, and so that we can actually say, look what's happened. We reduced the speed, we've improved the air quality, we've improved people's health. And finally, I think if my vision cannot be accommodated, then I'd like the executive to give serious consideration to, in some locations where they can't accommodate a 20 mile per hour restriction permanently, is that they looked at timed restrictions in those locations, because those time restrictions would obviously be around when the volume of traffic is needed and there's children and other vulnerable people on the roads. Because more and more, as you know, as society develops, as I will be doing, grandparents get involved in collecting children from schools. It's not, so it's not as straightforward as, just people jumping in their car and picking them up. Nowadays, you've got more elderly people collecting their children, so that's why it classifies as vulnerable. So that's what I'm suggesting we do. I can't propose anything. I can't vote. I'm beginning to wonder why I'm here, but you can tell because I'm committed to this. So what I would suggest is that somebody in this room that can propose something, maybe give serious consideration to what I've said, and maybe they would like to propose something or incorporate it with their own proposal. Thank you very much.
Okay, do I have anybody else wishing to speak? Any other members? Yeah, Councillor Harrison.
Is this speak or ask questions? Can I just check? Because I haven't got a question.
No, you can just talk.
Okay, so it was really just, I mean, I appreciate what Arnold said. Arnold, we like you to come here, so please don't be put off by that. I just think we can't ignore in the report the reference to both national guidance and local policy on heavily trafficked strategic roads, and in this case it's the Hookstone Road suggestion. I mean, I appreciate the contributors today from outside of the council. You know, they don't have to consider many of the things that the highways officers do, but there's a real thread of logic behind why the strategic, heavily trafficked roads don't go down to 20 miles an hour. And that's where, whatever we do, it's all about having a balance. And I think if we went down that route, we tip the balance, and also that would have serious implications right across the county, I would have thought. So that's one thing that I think we have to recognise and support in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Schofield.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up then from what Arnold said, I realise that we're also looking at Green Lane and further on as a next phase development. So would it be possible then, please, to look at Leadall Lane and possible speed, such things as speed bumps down there to try and stop people speeding? Would it be possible to include that in that report, please?
I think what we can commit to is certainly the items that have been raised and discussed today within the meeting we'll take away and we'll have a look at. It will be in line with our North Yorkshire Council policy and with the government guidelines. So, but we're more than happy to have a look at those in line with those policies in preparation for the final recommendation that we make.
Okay, Councillor Lacey.
I'd just like to say how encouraged I am by both the report, the engagement, the conversations, the willingness to take a look at things. I don't know all the roads and the suggestions and the bits and pieces, etc., that have been suggested. I did have kids who went to St Aidan, so I do know the area well enough, and I think it's really a sort of positive thing to build on. In terms of our committee here, I mean, we should acknowledge that. We should ask, I suppose, that all of those reasonable, because any suggestion that comes up from a headmaster about what happens outside their school door, and I'm sure you agree, should be taken seriously. So I think all we can expect, in the spirit of the positive working relationships, the way in which the officers have gone about it, is that they do take away each of the suggestions and almost sort of said, why shouldn't we do it? Because there's clearly going to be a good rationale behind it. And if there's a constructive conversation, and if there are reasons why you have to say no, they may be budgetary, they may be policy, whatever, then in the spirit of the current relationships, I think those should be accepted. And I'm just conscious that I suppose the pace that has been instilled within the process shouldn't then be stalled, because I think what we not want to see is the stuff happening on the ground. And if we try and get it precisely right, we'll get it broadly wrong. So thank you, Melissa and team, and I'd like to suggest that that's the sort of way in which we encourage the work to proceed.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I've been heavily involved in this and really can't thank those, particularly one lady I'd like to mention, Hazel, who has moved this forward. And I look forward to its implementation and to make sure that we don't have what we've had there recently, which were 2 accidents involving children. So to see this moving forward, the big plea I have, and I don't know what North Yorkshire can do about this, is because we've had 20 miles per hour outside Hookstone Chase for 15 years, never policed. The police will not police it. And we do need somebody to start threatening these people who won't listen to the signage that says 20 miles per hour and just continue to do 30. We do need to make sure that some kind of action is taken to make sure that the traffic does slow down, to ensure that our children can safely utilise those roads, particularly in the Oatlands area where they're crossing between the 2 schools, where it can be quite dangerous. And we did have an accident, didn't we, with a young child. And therefore, I do think if this committee, and if not North Yorkshire, say to the police, it's about time you actually tried to monitor these areas to make sure that if we're going to put the effort in to put 20 miles per hour in there, that it is adhered to and not just ignored by cyclists, car users.
Okay, Councillor Warnecan, did you have something to add?
Thank you. I just want to come back to Melissa because you mentioned about taking it all we're saying away, which is great. But I feel almost it's like I'm taking it away, but my hands are tied. Otherwise, I would have done what you're asking already. And I just think there's examples where local authorities have put in traffic calming and speed restrictions that don't follow the guidance you refer to. Obviously, not North Yorkshire's guidance, but national guidance. And there's times in our political and careers where I think we have to be a little bit more challenging, and I'm asking you as an organisation, our officers, to be a bit more challenging about this and don't just be told by national whatever what you've got to do, because doing what's right is what we need to do. And clearly we have identified in this campaign, which I have to congratulate yourselves and the people behind, and I hope that we get it all sorted. It will stop Hazel Peacock stalking me. So if we get it sorted, what I want to do is put on board all the things, and I take the point about not going for perfect, but at the same time, let's have everything in that pot to give a really good response and come out with a really good suggestion. One of the things I'm not clear about is, am I right in thinking that there are already 20 mile per hour restrictions on Hookstone, near Crimple, that area? Yes, in the proposals? So why can't we, is that a different road to the Hookstone road, classification-wise? Thank you. That's my question.
I mean, just thank you for that point. Clearly, I think this is quite an ambitious proposal. It's certainly a step change to where we've been, historically, and we have put a lot of work into it. But we'll certainly take on the recommendations that people have made today and take them on board and assess them. But clearly, we have a policy in place for a reason, and we do have to adhere to the national guidance. So, but like I say, we will assess those.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
I'm not allowed to make recommendations. So can we call it something else that you'll take on board from me? Okay. Thank you. How do we feel? Really stifled. It'll all change in May.
I mean, Melissa, if we're saying that the national guidelines are the national guidelines, are you aware of then how other cities have circumvented those in order to put 20 mile per hour areas on A and B roads?
The team has certainly done some research in this. I mean, clearly we put a lot of work in, more recently, as you know, into our existing policy, and that has recently just been reviewed. In doing that, clearly we do look at examples and best cases across the country. So yeah, the team certainly have the knowledge, but whether it's something we can look at for the specifics here, I'm not sure. Like I say, we do have that policy in place for a reason, and we do have to adhere to that. And mainly it was, as has already been mentioned, it's about that consistency across not just Harrogate, but across the county as well, that we have to ensure we're maintaining.
Just because personally I have experienced certainly timed 20 mile per hour periods on A roads that the locals definitely seem to pretty much adhere to. So it was, it was understood. It wasn't all day, every day, but during the particularly, busy mornings and afternoon periods that those were in place. So, I mean, that's certainly something that I would like to see looked at as a possibility if we can't make it permanent, because my fear is that some people already don't stick necessarily to 30 mile per hour on those roads, depending obviously on the busy, because sometimes drivers would like to do 20 mile per hour on some of the roads that we're asking for a restriction on, and it's not possible because of the congestion. But what I don't want to see is motorists trying to make up lost time on 30 mile per hour roads by going quicker because of the perceived delay on the 20 mile per hour roads. So I just worry that if we don't do something about the 30 mile per hour roads at the same time, we're actually then potentially causing those roads to become more dangerous. Councillor Haslam was next, I think.
Hi, I'd like to request that we get a quarterly report sent to this committee about all road changes in Knaresborough and Harrogate in our whole area. Just a progress update. So these are a list of the projects. These are the enablers. This is whether there's funding in place. So, you know, if for example, we know that we have to bid for funding for certain things. And this is the timeline when we expect it to happen. Now, we know there's weather, there's roads, there's other disasters and things. But I'd like to just see quarterly a report that includes this, but also includes the items that might be in item 8 on the agenda and item 9. But that we just get a quarterly report. I'm not expecting the officers to come, but that we get a regular update on exactly what's going on in our areas. That's my request, please.
I would say, we could perhaps look to adding that on the working programme when we get to that point. That might be worthwhile. Yeah, I think a lot of us feel like that, Paul. Councillor Broadbank.
I often read about the guidelines and how we have to do this, that and the other. How much flexibility have you actually got on the guidelines, and what would happen, what would the consequences be if you decided to say, no, we're not doing it that way, we're going to do it this way? Because, I mean, the word guidelines doesn't necessarily, to me, mean we have to do it a certain way, that you have some flexibility in what you do. So I'm just curious as to what would happen if the council decided to do things in a different way that perhaps didn't comply to the guidelines.
That's a difficult question, but I think, guidelines are there for a reason. Clearly, where we can be pragmatic and defend an introduction of a certain measure, we will do so, and we do that. But they are there for a reason, and it's back to that consistency again. You have to make sure that these measures are self-enforcing. Any traffic measures are self-enforceable. You have to make sure that they're safe and that they're going to work in the area. And in terms of the consistency, that's something that that we have to make sure it is across the board, across the county. So introducing it in one area as a pilot, it's not impossible, but doing that, obviously, you then have that concern that it's just, it's going to be, everybody's going to want that implementation. It doesn't work everywhere. It's not one fits all on all of these roads, which is why in the presentation we have got a number of areas where we've said we might need some traffic calming in certain areas, and we might be able to just do some signed only areas. So it's a difficult question to ask, but clearly they're there for a reason.
Well,
and as an officer, I have to, we stand by those.
I sometimes think that when certain things are needed, and then you say, "Oh, we can't do that. It's not within the guidelines." And where does common sense come into it? You can see a situation, you think, right, we could do that, and then you say, "Oh, can't do that. The guidelines won't allow it."
It's the policy is what we are sticking to, and we have to stick to because we have that policy there for a reason. Guidelines, yes, of course, there's a little bit of flexibility, and that again, that comes back to the pragmatism of the site, where you are, the function of that area as well. But in terms of policy, a lot of work has gone into that, as you know, that's been reviewed more recently for North Yorkshire Council.
And just a final one, speed humps, I don't think we do anymore, do we? Have the speed platforms, I know we do, but speed humps we don't do, because various people when knocking on doors, they say we need some speed humps now. But I don't think that we, as a council, we don't do speed humps now, do we? We do speed platforms and chicanes, but we don't do speed humps. Is that right?
There's often a maintenance issue with speed humps, but it's not that we won't do them or don't do them. It's again quite specific to the area in terms of what would fit and what's more appropriate.
Okay, we're going to have to bring this to a close soon. So I've got Councillor Warnock indicated he wants to speak again. We've got a statement that Mark's going to read out by John Mann, and then I think we need to move it to looking at recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you. There are examples of what Councillor Broadbank was referring to quite close to home, like Otley, for example. But I wanted to just say my final piece was going to be that we are talking about slowing down traffic here for road safety reasons, but there's a huge other benefit that we haven't really associated with is that if it takes somebody in a car to do their journey longer, they give more serious consideration of getting out of their car. So I think not only are we reducing speed of traffic, but we're reducing volume of traffic. And that is a big, big issue because we make too many assumptions. And I know there's members of this ACC that would support this. We make too many assumptions that everybody's a car user. So if we can make those roads better for non-car users that exist and increase the number of non-car users, reducing the speed is what we're targeting. But that's a huge bonus, both from a well-being point of view and an environmental point of view. So let's go for it.
Thank you, Chair. This is a statement from John Mann, who sent it literally just minutes before the meeting because he wasn't able to attend. So his statement is, I am very pleased with the proposals in the report and would like to thank officers and road safety campaigners concerned for all that the hard work they have put into the issue. The new 20-mile-per-hour proposal would substantially increase road safety for children travelling to and from the many schools in Oatlands and Panelash. Furthermore, I am particularly pleased that my applications for a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit have been accepted for Yew Tree Lane and Green Lane, both of which host schools and both of which are currently very dangerous for children walking or cycling to school. In addition, I support the new school streets pilot at Beechwood Grove, the first such initiative in the country, in the county, which closes the street to traffic at school drop-off and pick-up times and is already making a huge difference to road safety and air quality in the street at those times. Lastly, I accept 20-mile-per-hour limits are not suitable for main routes or strategic roads, but could I suggest that an exception could be made for Huxton Road from the Marks and Spencer's Crossroads to Hornbeam Park? This road hosts a school and children have to cross it regularly on the way to and from school. Thank you very much.
Okay, so do we have a specific recommendation that we want to put forward? So obviously we've read the report, we've heard what Melissa's had to say, we've had some statements. Yep, Councillor Walker.
So I'd just like to thank Hazel and Jenny for all their persistence in pulling this together and navigating the council's complex procedures. So thank you for doing that. Every child should be able to go to school safely and go home safely. I'm actually really disappointed that the executive member has come so late to the table. When 20-mile-an-hour zones in residential areas were first raised by the Lib Dems, they were voted against by the Conservatives.
Whoa. There's a by-election on. Sorry, we can't get into politics, Councillor Walker.
Okay, so the recommendation I would like is that we propose to accept the recommendations in the report and that we look to make it a really good success and then look how we might be able to use it as a bit of a template across other schools across the district.
Councillor Haslam?
I don't think we should be tying the officers' hands. For example, I've given feedback, and we've had feedback from some of our distinguished guests, that nursery lane isn't necessary. I think we should just endorse the report, note the report, and expect the officers to take away the information that we've given today. And I'm hoping that hopefully Mark's got them in the minutes, but if not, Melissa's been sketching away at a great rate of knots. I don't think we should be tying anybody's hands at this moment in time. It's quite clear the officers are on board with the project. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I would endorse that, Councillor Haslam, because I think there are recommendations and suggestions that have come forward that need looking at. I don't think we necessarily are saying that what's been proposed so far is exactly as we would like it. I think it's definitely worth pushing forward and investigating a bit more on some of the crossings and some of the speeds. Okay. So do we have a form of words? Do you want to propose a form of words, Councillor Haslam, for that?
Yeah, I mean, the spirit of the comment that I made earlier was to accept the report and encourage the continued positive working relationship. It's not going to be precise, so simple recommendation, accept the report, welcome it, and welcome the spirit within which it's been developed.
Councillor Walker.
So I'm happy to second that proposal.
Any other comments, or are you ready for a vote on it? Yep. All those in favour? Okay, that was unanimous, thank you. Right, I will hand back to our chair.
Thank you very much for that. Having been involved in that for the past years, pleased to see that one moving forward. But again, I do make the point the police need to be involved. I don't know how we can do that, Melissa, but we do need them on board. Right, now we're on to agenda item 8, which is the Otley Road Sustainable Transport Measures west of Harrogate. And we have a speaker. We have Renee Jabaz from Harlow and Panel Ash Residents Association. Do you want to read out a statement?
Can everybody hear me okay? We would like to take this opportunity to express our broad support for this proposal. It is probably one of the few times that one is able to see residents' comments actually incorporated into such a policy, and we look forward to this package being developed and implemented in a manner that will start to address a number of the problems arising from the huge level of housing development to the west of Harrogate. If we do have concerns with this package, they relate to two wider aspects. One, the package comes over as being defined by a set amount of money, in this case £565,000, with £798,000 being shown as available. We would have liked other elements to have been costed, thereby helping to develop more of a vision towards greater sustainability. We understand that finances are very constrained at present, but we feel that this package represents an opportunity to put additional markers down for the future. Ultimately, it should take us towards getting traffic off of the roads and making immediate communities more sustainable. Two, we would have liked stronger statements in relation to public transport, a point that was made at the workshop in May of this year. We fully understand that public transport is not in the gift of the council since it is run on a commercial basis, but we feel that a greater emphasis is required since it is accepted that one of the keys to reducing car usage is a good public transport proposition. So far, much of the discussion around public transport comes over as aspirational, and we have yet to see any ambitious plans to really expand such services. In no way do we wish our reservations to be taken in a negative manner. We fully recognise that Area 6 have taken the trouble to actively engage with the local community, which has been appreciated, and we look forward to future engagements addressing our concerns. But at the end of the day, if you don't ask, you don't get, and we feel that this is an opportunity to put down some community-based markers for the future. Thank you.
Have any members got any questions? Mark, are you going to read a comment out?
Yeah, I have a statement from David Mitchell from Harrogate District Cycle Action, who is unable to attend the meeting today. He made a number of comments which I think relate to a number of previous reports as well, but it relates predominantly to this report. split them into section number 1, Otley Road Cycleway. In 2017, NYCC successfully bid for funding for the Otley Road Cycleway from Prince of Wales Roundabout to Cardale Park. Only a very small isolated part, phase 1 of the cycleway, has been built to poor standards. NYC abandoned phase 2 in 2023 following a consultation which showed majority 56% support for going ahead with it. We are disappointed that the council has shown so little commitment to its own cycle scheme. With thousands of houses planned on Otley Road beyond Carlow Car, it remains essential to build a joined-up cycle route from new developments to the town centre. This must not be broken links. Diverting the funding away from the cycleway is therefore the wrong decision. The 20 mile per hour zone, we strongly support the proposed 20 mile an hour zone. The funding should not come from raiding the cycling budget. Increasing capacity for motor vehicles on Otley Road. The largest single item of spending in the revised programme is $200,000 for new traffic lights at the Otley Road Coalbath Road junction, specifically to increase capacity for motor vehicles. This is for unsustainable transport, not sustainable transport, and should not be funded from the West Harrogate Sustainable Transport Package. Uncontrolled crossings. As councillors will know, uncontrolled crossings are not really crossings at all. Just a bit of tactile paving and a drop curb as a suggested place to cross, but the priority to motor vehicles. Uncontrolled crossings are proposed by NYC at Western Primary Coalbath Road and Ashfield College Green Lane. There should be zebra, Western Primary and parallel Ashfield College crossings. Cycle signage review. There was a comprehensive cycle signage programme in 2014. The work does not need doing again. We need safe cycle routes, not more signposts. £25,000 for a signage review, presumably paid to consultants WSP, would be a waste of public money. Nursery Lane has a good sealed surface and modal filters, so there is no through traffic. It is currently a footpath. It could be made a bridle way, but no infrastructure is needed. NYC need to invest in a coherent, well thought out cycle network, including difficult but much needed provision on main routes like Otley Road. Instead, they are cherry-picked, isolated streets or paths which they think would be easy to do, not generate any opposition, but which don't join up other routes. Spending £100,000 on Nursery Lane is not sensible because it would not make a meaningful difference to the cycle network. And then there's a quotation from the Cycle Infrastructure Design for Information. Cycle infrastructure must join together or join other facilities together by taking a holistic, connected network approach which recognises the importance of nodes, links and areas that are good for cycling. Routes should be planned holistically as part of a network. Isolated stretch of provision, even if it isn't good or of little value. Developing a connected network is more than lines on a map. It is about taking local people on the journey with you in order to understand who currently cycles, where they go and why they go there, and more importantly, who does not currently cycle and why.
Members, any questions on that? If not, we'll go to the next statement that I think Mark's got to read out.
Yes, I have another statement from Mr. John Holder. In the hope of improving matters, I do think Highways Department seem to prefer to alter roads but do not listen to the obvious. There are too many traffic lights in Harrogate which appear at every junction, particularly on Otley Road. Suggestions to take some out of action on a pilot basis are not even considered. Motorists can well negotiate junctions onto another road. We are not at all inexperienced, and I would simply say it is really a waste of money on truly expensive schemes. There are many instances also of wrongly placed mid-road road stands next to bus stops and large garages which slow traffic. Also many roundabouts which are unnecessarily slowing traffic, but this seems not to be on the list. Thank you.
Any questions or comments on that? Okay. No more comments to read out then, Mark?
No more statements, Chair, no.
No. Fine. Then I think you said you've got to provide a short response prior to consideration of the report.
Yes, Chair. So it's saying, again, officers would like to thank those who have submitted the statements in relation to the report. So the Otley Road Sustainable Transport Measures and all feedback will take into consideration where it's feasible. A response to items raised will be addressed as part of the report, presentation, anything regarding further detail can be provided in writing following the meeting.
Thank you for that. Now, can I invite Melissa Burnham?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report today is to update members and seek their views on the proposed package of measures to take forward as part of the Otley Road Sustainable Transport Measures for the west of Harrogate. On the 10th of February this year, a decision was made at the former North Yorkshire County Council BES Executive Members meeting to allocate the remaining National Productivity Investment Fund to develop a package of sustainable measures for the west of Harrogate in line with the objectives of the NPIF bid. The NPIF objectives recognise the need for safety improvements and congestion relief along the Otley Road corridor and the delivery of enhanced sustainable transport measures. National productivity funding was made available in 2018 and the NPIF to date has provided improvements such as the Otley Road cycle link between Cardale Park and Arthur's Avenue, the signalised junction optimisation along the corridor and the junction improvements at Harlow Moor Road Junction. An officer group has been created to review the area and create the package over several months, reviewing the proposed works. Representation of the group covered traffic signal engineers, passenger transport representatives, highway operations representatives and development management representatives, so a number of representatives from across the service of highways. We carried out joint walkovers of the area and we analysed all the available data to us. That includes personal injury, accident data, speed data, traffic volume, and of course on-site observations. We've carried out a number of community engagements. We've had walkthroughs, on-site observations and walkthroughs with the campaigners, and they've been a key link to the package development. We've engaged with Harlow and Panelash Residents Association May this year, and at that meeting there was representatives from the local cycle group and the road safety campaign group also. Feedback at that meeting in particular had some very common themes. There was the provision of public transport services and infrastructure improvements. People were concerned about rat running, particularly on the residential streets. They wanted a review of the crossing locations and the introduction of some new crossings, and they wanted a review of speed limits on safer streets within the area. Members are obviously aware of the 20-mile-an-hour petition review as outlined in the previous agenda item. This was, of course, taken into consideration along with other active travel measures. And some of the streets, as mentioned, listed within the 20-mile-an-hour report are actually cross-referenced with the proposed package of measures here. So as explained, that includes Coalbath Road and it includes Arthur's Avenue. Active travel scheme developed on Victoria Avenue is also for the ATF fund, has been something that we've presented in the past here. That's still ongoing and that's obviously been taken into consideration as part of our assessments. That's still ongoing and we are developing and designing that, and that will be mentioned, I believe, in the next report. West of Harrogate package, the work there obviously is also ongoing by officers, and that's something that we've also had and taken into consideration and had conversations about as part of creation with this package. And we were very sure to include representatives from this project as part of the officer working group in order to create these proposals today. I wasn't going to go into detail of the Table 1, but the proposals are outlined in Table 1, and we have a number of those proposals. I did want to just pick up some of them by exception, just because they've been raised in the statements today. So one of the items discussed and raised in the statements was the signal upgrade of Coalbath Road and Otley Road, Arthur's Avenue, particularly with regard to the cost of £200,000 for that upgrade. This is to provide congestion relief on the Otley Road corridor, which is a key objective of the NPIF funding. But it's important to recognise that actually the improvements at that junction would actually create a safe space and it would improve help with the pedestrian movements in that area as well. So it does have some benefits which wasn't recognised in the table for the pedestrians as well in that area. Also wanted to take on board a number of, I think there was a mention in one of the statements about the uncontrolled crossing on Green Lane. that is something that we'll certainly take that feedback on board in terms of whether we can look at a zebra. There was some visibility issues on observation when we went out there, so we did start with a signalised crossing, then a zebra, and we were concerned about some visibility aspects on there. But it's something we'll look at as part of the design going forward, so that's not going to be a problem. And also the crossing on Colbath Road outside the school. Obviously, at the minute, it's an indicative, this is indicative. We haven't got a detailed design. We will look at options, and we will be discussing that and consulting that with the local school as well. So in terms of those designs there, we'll pick that up. With regards to the nursery lane and the potential improvements to the nursery lane, off-road leisure route, there's certainly been a historic desire from the locals to see that widened and improved, to improve the links at that side of Harrogate. But we'll take on board the feedback presented today in a number of the statements, and we'll take another look at that. The costs for all of these schemes are indicative at the minute and will be firmed up with detailed design as we go forward to the next steps. In terms of the next steps, a report will be submitted to the Corporate Director for Environment in consultation with the Executive Member for Highways and Transportation in October and November this year to seek permission to commence design works on the proposals recommended in the Table 1. A further report will be submitted to the Corporate and Environment Executive Director once these work have been concluded, which will have a detailed timetable of implementation for these works. We have considered the equalities implications and included the necessary screening report within the report in Appendix E. And with regards to the finance implications, we at the Best Exec Members Report dated the 10th of February, we reported the fund as being 565k. But since this date, we've had a further Section 106 contributions and contractor recharges, so the amount of available spend has increased for the introduction of Table 1, and then that's gone up to 797,918. It's estimated that 60,000 of that will be detailed for outstanding matters and remedial work for the Phase 1 cycle route. With regards to legal implications, a number of the proposals within the report will require traffic regulation orders. There will also be necessary consultations as required under the Highways Road Humps Regulation 1999. There'll also be necessary consultations with those in the vicinity of the works, whether that's the businesses or the residents, before we proceed with any of those works. The climate change impact assessment has also been considered. And clearly there are positives recognised within that report, and that's included as well in the appendices. So the recommendation today is that the members consider and update and note its content, and clearly as the previous report, all feedback will be considered and taken forward for the final recommendation to BES Exec Member. Environment Exec Member, sorry.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Arnold Warnigan.
I'm conscious of how long here, Chair, so I'll cut right to it. I think it's a great report, but as you would expect, with all great reports, there is a difference of opinion, and I'm not 100% convinced about some of these proposals. I really can't get my head around one aspect of it, and you've touched on it, the Colbath Road lights there, because I'm aware of what you just said, is to reduce congestion. But I'm also aware of latent demand. So if we reduce the congestion, if we keep the traffic flowing better than it is currently, then that latent demand could take up the difference. And so I don't think, from my point of view, that is a sustainable measure. It's sustainable for cars, but it's not sustainable for active travel and the environment. So I think we need to look at that as a knock-on effect of taking those actions. And I'd ask that the money that's being proposed for that seriously is used in what I would say is a far more sustainable way. That's that location. I'm also very concerned about what has been touched on Nursery Lane, because when people that are using sustainable transport are the people that are saying it's good enough, don't waste money on it, it begs the question then, are we listening to them or not? And if we are listening to them, then we would take that £100,000 away and look at how we could spend it more sustainably. And I'm thinking of things like, rather than, this links into item 7 that was on the agenda, the last item, rather than having these tactile pavements and dropped curbs at Western Primary School, that we would look at things like tiger crossings. So we are encouraging children to cycle to work because they're safe places for them to cross. And the same applies maybe at improving the crossings at Grove Park Avenue, Beach Grove, in Park Avenue. I just think we aren't truly sustainable in this conclusion, and I'm surprised that the community engagement meeting didn't draw attention to this, because if I'd been there and this had been proposed for the crossroads there, it would have been starting alarm bells straight away. So I'm asking that this committee asks the decision process to actually reconsider the way the money's been spent at the crossroads and the money's been spent at nursery, thus releasing £300,000 to be spent in a far, far more sustainable way. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Mike Schofield.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to the nursery lane point, it would be worthwhile consulting with the department and looking at still selling the nurseries, because nothing's been said about that. So if the nurseries were to be sold off to a developer, surely that money would be taken from them to develop that cycle, to develop any route there. So there would be no need for us to spend that money there. Secondly, just for my, actually to be getting mixed up, the Trinity Road junction, which scheme does that come under? You know, the lighted scheme that we looked at, Trinity Road, that joins Otley Road onto Leeds Road.
Oh, right.
You on one of the schemes, there's the light scheme. Yep. Just which scheme's that? Just so I know. Sorry.
So that's included in a proposal for the West of Harrogate.
Right.
So
I'll leave that
not
one.
included in
Yeah. So I can leave that one. And then just for a point of clarification, because everything keeps saying that the cycleway links Cardale Park to Arthur's Avenue, and it doesn't. It stops directly outside the new development of 9 houses opposite Westley Avenue, and that is still causing a lot of issues with people still believing it does join up to Cardale, and causing a lot of danger on that bit from Plantation Road down to the bit where it joins on opposite Westley Avenue. So I would just like to get it out there to the public. That bit on Plantation Road to Westley Avenue is not a cycle path. And therefore, please don't cycle on it. And if we could get some signage up for that, because it is causing our elderly residents quite a lot of concern. And just to keep it going forward in future documentation, that it does say that, number 1, it just goes from Westley Avenue down to Arthur's Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. We've now got Councillor Haslam.
Not wishing to hasten things, but I think if we take Arnold's comments as if they come from me, because I've mentioned most of those comments, and let's just assume that I think we do need to look at that £200,000 we're spending on the traffic lights. It's a bit more complex than I think there's in the statement there, because it talks about widening footpaths and things. So I think perhaps a review and a better explanation maybe. But I would like to, I really would like to move this on to the next item, because all these 3 items are connected. And so I would like to recommend that we note this report. We ask that the team take away the comments that have been made. I endorsed Arnold's comments, and that we move to the next item, please, Chair.
I've got one other person wishing to speak. Councillor Schofield. That's fine. Thank you. So what are we asking from the committee to highways?
Would you like me to repeat it?
The recommendations forward.
Yeah, please. The recommendation is we note the report, that they take away the comments that have been made by Arnold and Mike and myself, and perhaps can feed back if there's any further issues. But it's all, as I say, all that's the recommendation.
Okay. Yeah. Can I have a seconder on that? I think it's... Yeah, Dan? Okay. So in that case, if it's been moved and seconded, if there's no more comments, we will go to the vote. Right. We've now got, we're on agenda item 9, aren't we? Which is the Harrogate Transport Project's Oatlands feasibility results. Have we got Louise and Niels? Yes, we have. Would you like to present your report?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my report focuses on 3 projects that we have ongoing in the Harrogate area at the moment, one of which is Oatlands, the other 2 are the Harrogate Transport Improvements Programme and Killinghall Bypass. So we've got a variety of projects under development in the Harrogate area, and as these schemes are strategic projects and likely to require significant investment, particularly Killinghall and the Harrogate Transport Improvements Programme, we've developed those in line with the Department for Transport's framework for large local major transport schemes. So these schemes are developed by the Council's Transport Planning team, and we as a team lead on development on scheme business cases, bidding for funding and transport policy. And most of you will have all met me in terms of local transport plan discussions, which is one of our key policy pieces. So in terms of the Harrogate Transport Improvements Programme, this is a piece of work that's been ongoing for a number of years. And some of you may remember that in 2019, the Harrogate Congestion Study engagement showed very low support for any of the Harrogate Relief Road alignments. There was 78% of people against that. And the Council has been working on developing a number of options to reduce congestion in Harrogate. So the first phase of the project was known, which was the first phase of what we call HTIP, and looked into several corridors at a high level to look at which were appropriate to take forward. In phase 2, we have focused on one corridor. The reason behind this is that the funding required to develop compliant business cases is quite large, and so we couldn't take on every corridor within Harrogate. So we've focused mainly on A61 Leeds Road. The cost of implementing a solution that is likely will exceed the Council's current own budgets. And on that basis, as mentioned, we've developed the options alongside the larger major scheme criteria as set out by the DFT. So we've been working on this project for the last kind of 18 months. We are currently reviewing all of the items that have come back in as that. From that, we're also waiting on some updated transport assessments from the developers in the area, as clearly the A61 links quite closely to the west of Harrogate development. And once we have those, we will be able to model all of the outputs against those. As part of this study, we've also got Park and Ride, but the Park and Ride part of the study doesn't just focus on the A61. It focuses on sites to the north, to the south, and also includes some sites at the showground. The reason for that is the recognition that for park and ride to work effectively, you can't just have one site. There needs to be multiple sites to make that work in the best possible way. So in order to develop the final recommendations and in view of the important links between HTIP and west of Harrogate, we have been collaborating with the teams and between the teams and we'll continue to do that. Timescales are still being determined for this to be finalised, but it's expected to be during the autumn. The next project is the Oatlands feasibility study, which came about following the public engagement that was undertaken as part of the Active Travel Fund Tranche 2. These proposals went out to consultation and there was not very positive feedback in terms of what we put out for that area. So on that basis, as officers, we agreed with the Department of Transport at the time, and then subsequently with Active Travel England, that we'd use some of that money to look at a wider report of the Oatlands area rather than just looking at one particular road. So as part of this new project, the responses from the original public engagement were combined with information collected through a number of traffic and transport surveys, including the Commonplace platform, where we received a number of comments from members of the public. And discussions as part of this shows that the two of the biggest areas of concern are indiscriminate parking and also the reduction in bus services and bus penetration into some of the smaller roads in that area. There also shows that there is significant proportion of people who found that the amount of vehicles in the study area and the speeds were also an issue for them. So based on this information, officers have been working to determine a series of possible next steps. In addition to this, we've also had meetings that I know that Melissa has been having with local schools and organisations, and this feeds back to the items that we've previously had this afternoon and this morning. So the designs are currently being reviewed by Melissa and her colleagues in the area team. And it's envisaged that residents will be consulted on this later in the year. Results of the consultation will be presented to this group in the new year alongside recommended improvements for the area. Third item that I want to pick up today is Killinghall bypass. So when we carried out the congestion study, although there was not support for relief roads for Harrogate itself, there actually was still a level of support for looking at something that would bypass the village of Killinghall. So at that time, the executive agreed that it would be appropriate to consider developing the project to assess its suitability for submission to the DfT's large local major schemes programme. And we've been carrying out that work as an options appraisal report over the last year. That report has looked at 3 different options for different alignments. And at this stage, it's recommended that the scheme continues to form part of the council's major scheme list. Although we will be doing a piece of work over the coming months to review and to update our major schemes list. And the Killinghall bypass and the work that's done so far will be included within that review. And we will be looking to make sure that our major schemes list in the future is a much more diverse and multimodal scheme list than it currently is. But that isn't to say that any work has been lost. It's just that it kind of falls into this next stage of work. And so finally, we've provided a number of reviews on the finance, legal, equalities and climate change on this report. Clearly, all of those individual projects will have varying levels of impact in those areas if we come forward to a point of delivery, and at that point we will do full reviews on those. And in terms of the recommendations of the report, it is to note the content of the updates on the three particular items that we've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I'll be brief. My big concern on the development of HDIP, we already have. This is the stuff when we didn't get it online, so you can imagine how much there must be now we're online. These are three different reports. They're not the same report 3 times. My big concern is that although we're taking corridors, we need to take an holistic approach to this. We need to look at the whole of Harrogate and Knaresborough all the time on these. So, for example, you talk about park and ride. The key thing to make park and ride succeed is actually all the free car parking that's round the back of the Stray. That is where all the people that come to Harrogate from Leeds go and park. And until you sort that out, they will never get onto your bus that's partway down the A61. And that's why I'm saying, make it permit parking or whatever you need to do. But we need an holistic approach that says this is how we're doing stuff. So I come back to my call that sort of said it was kicked into the forward plan earlier, and I'm requesting, and I'd like the committee to support me on this, I'm requesting, and I'm asking you guys whether it's feasible or not, is can we have a quarterly report of all different schemes that are going ahead or potentially going ahead in our area, what the enablers are, what the current barriers are, which might be financed, there's no funding for it, when it might be delivered, etc., and a few steps so that we can all see what's going on. We're not I don't want an officer to have to come from down from North Yorkshire to show us. We can all read it. We can just make it really simple. But I really would ask for that. And then finally, on this, and again, I ask that every project that we do, particularly as this is about reducing congestion, but also that we look at the potential decarbonisation of the impact of each project. Because that is a fundamental issue here. If it's not, the council has a decarbonisation policy. Decarbonisation isn't purely changing from one fuel to another. It's about modal shift, it's about public transport, etc. So I ask that we actually put a potential decarbonisation calculation into any project at an early stage, because we might say, well, there's no benefit from this. Well, where are the benefits and how do we weigh all the different benefits? That's got to be one of the benefits. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Goslow.
Similar questions. Just for confirmation, was Park and Ride looked at in terms of Knaresborough?
So the site's located on 3 of the main arterial routes into Harrogate. So the A61 from the north and the south, the A661 Wetherby Road, and I think there is an eastern site, but it wasn't particularly looking at the connections up into Knaresborough. It was down into Harrogate.
Another question, sorry, for my own information on personal information, and again relating to decarbonisation. Is the bypass that's suggested to be on a new road? And if so, can you explain how that's balanced the reduction in congestion with the amount of biodiversity lost and tarmac put down, etc.?
Yes, so they are new alignments that was looked at. We would go into that detail at a later stage. So at this stage, it's a very high-level options appraisal, but we would definitely take all of that into account as we moved it forward through the stages, if it's deemed to be appropriate.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one following on from Councillor Goslow. If you're looking at an eastern one, depending on where it was based, would it not be sensible to make it dual, so it would feed Knaresborough and then Harrogate, therefore double bubble and saving 2 lots of reports and money?
Yes, looking at that, it does look like we could seek to identify if there are any services that could link into that. We've tried to look at sites that are already served, or not the sites, but the route outside of them is served already by a public bus route, because they are the kind of the best way and the quickest and cheapest way to get those up and running. But yeah, we can certainly have a quick look at that piece of work as well.
I'm just thinking that even if there isn't an existing one, if it's a money-making scheme for a private bus company, they'll jump at the chance.
Councillor Gosling, you want to come back?
In terms of Knaresborough, and from what you've just said, could it be looked at that the existing bus route that runs past two of our large car parks at the lower end and higher end of the town be looked at, that it could be a discussion between diverting into the car park, just so that the existing bus route picks up directly from the car parks and almost provides the park and ride scheme itself?
Yeah, I don't think we could do that as part of this existing project, but I can certainly have a conversation with colleagues in the integrated passenger transport team about that.
Can I ask questions about public transport? Because in here you make a statement about having a reduction in bus services and bus penetration into some of the smaller side roads running off Oatlands Road and Huxton Chase. We haven't even got a bus service, so how is it ever going to go off the road anyway? So it is about having a proper bus service in that area. We were out speaking to people yesterday on the doorstep, and they were saying, what about a bus service, a proper bus service down Huxton Chase? Large area without public transport, proper delivery of that. So I don't know what influence we have over the bus companies on that. Making sure that areas like, shall I say, the Saints area, large area of population, not served by any buses. So it's again how we communicate as a council with the bus companies.
Yeah, and I think as part of the work, not included within this report here, but as part of the work that we will be doing on the local transport plan, is we will be having those conversations with those key stakeholders, and clearly bus operators are one of those key stakeholders that we will need to have those conversations with.
Councillor Broadbank.
Thanks, Chair. Could I add to that list Fairfax Community Centre area? Lots of problems around there, accessibility, and Forest Lane area in Starbeck. It's been raised quite a few times with people around there, and that would help. On the Killinghall bypass, now clearly there has been some work on this before. I'm wondering about how you're going to consult, what your intentions are on there, who you're going to consult with. And the other one was timescale. I mean, the issue has been around for a long time, and you could obviously discuss and consult forever, but eventually, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it. And I just wondered what you think the timescale will be.
In terms of consultation, we would do that as part of the next phase if this is taken forward. As I've mentioned, though, we are doing a review of the major schemes. I would imagine that this will still be on there once we've done the long listing and the sifting, but there will be a process at that point of identifying kind of timescales for each of the projects that are contained within it.
Okay, any more questions and comments? Okay.
It's the shortest one I've had today as well. My apologies, Chair, but I have to leave. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
Mine's just a comment. Thank you, Chair. I just want to reference that I welcome the continued inclusion of a potential Killinghall bypass in the major schemes. I mean, it is important that, we spend a lot of time talking about traffic congestion and alleviation and modal shift and all of those kind of things, but sometimes we also have to build a road, and we shouldn't shy away from considering that. So the fact that it's still in the scheme. Clearly, there would have to be a long way to go, and the current protected route is only part of a protected route because we've lost bits over time. But the fact that it's still a possibility on the table, I welcome, and we'll see how it progresses over the coming months.
Okay. Can we then note the content and updates of the 3 studies and ask for a proposer and a seconder?
I will give you a proposal. The proposal is that we note the comments as in there, but that we ask the officers to take away our comments as well. And I would like included a quarterly report of all road or transport development, let's call it transport development, in Harrogate and Knaresborough constituency area quarterly with the progress update so we understand exactly what we are looking at, please, Chair.
Is that seconded? Okay. So if that's the case, then we'll go to the vote on that. All those in favour? Thank you. That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we go on to the role of the ACC in community resilience. And we've got Matt Robinson, Head of Resilience and Emergencies, and Simon Wright as well.
So Simon could be online. Councillor Haslam's had his hand up, so I don't know if he wants to make his point before I start.
I'm just apologising, I'm going to have to leave, Chair.
That's okay.
That's okay, I know we've got an email exchange going on at the moment. So many thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. So there is a presentation that will come up, but whilst I'm waiting for that, this is just the start of the conversation with yourself as the Harrogate and Knaresborough Area Constituency Committee. Community resilience is something that has been going on for generations, absolutely. Councillor Good. Absolutely. Right. Simon, are you picking that up? That's fine, so he's gone back off mute. Yeah, so this has gone on for generations, absolutely. We know the good work that's been going on in Knaresborough. If we go to some of the other divisions around North Yorkshire, there are similar pieces of work, but it's not everywhere. Also, communities develop. The hazards, the risks, they develop, they change, and this needs to be an ongoing conversation. We've learnt a lot since COVID and the way that our communities can come together, and we need to harness that. So the incidents I'm talking about are those less likely, more impactful incidents, the flooding, the severe weather incidents that could lead to a loss of utilities and then make some of our individuals, our families, our businesses isolated and potentially needing support from communities, partner organisations. Big believer that the day-to-day resilience that we can build in our communities and the things that have come on since COVID can transfer into the emergency response. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So just to repeat what I said at the beginning, this is the start of the conversation with you as an area constituency committee. It's not saying that the work that's been done in the past isn't exemplary, and we know there's some good efforts that happen in the Harrogate and Knaresborough area. So you've got myself, I'm Matthew Robinson. I head up Resilience and Emergencies for now North Yorkshire Council. If you wouldn't mind, Charles, if you just click on to the next slide. I did attend the elected members seminar, so I'll quickly go through some of the slides that you may have seen previously, because I really want to focus in on what does it mean for us as a committee. So that's the areas I'm going to cover. A bit about our responsibilities. We do have duties. We have duties as emergency services. We have statutory requirements as a local authority. And then there is the roles that you would potentially like to take up before the emergency happens, but also during and after the incident itself. And then what I'd like to have a conversation is how do we use this meeting going forward in order to help support and harness community resilience. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Charles. So that's North Yorkshire. We know the geographical size of it. We know the fact that it is a beautiful place to live, work and visit. But those beauties of the areas of outstanding beauty and the river catchments are the things that will lead to some of these incidents. You can think of some of the named stormed events that we've had that have impacted communities, and sometimes it's not our known vulnerable residents that require the support. It's people within the communities that have been getting on with their day-to-day lives but suddenly find themselves in a vulnerable state. So just some of the incidents we've got there. You can see Tadcaster Bridge. That was the 2015-2016 flood event. That bridge, after it collapsed, was the one-year capital project that had to take place. It isolated the west and the east of Tadcaster, and it meant that we had residents who would live on one side that may need to travel up to 10 kilometres to get to their local GP surgery. The Great Heck train crash that happened in Selby and Ainsley. Severe weather as far as winter. You know, we are used to severe weather events. We have got communities that live and breathe these on an annual basis, but we do get some of the more extreme, the 2009, 2010, 2011 events, the beasts from the east type scenarios. And actually the one on the bottom right-hand corner, that happened along the A170. I know that's not within our divisions that we're talking about here, but that was a World War II enthusiast who went looking for what was believed to be a crashed plane, went out with his tractor, put the front bucket in, lifted it up, and there was the 500-pound bomb. So suddenly we had a 1.4 kilometre evacuation zone they had to put in place. If you think if that was in the middle of your division, what would that mean for your constituencies? Okay, if you don't mind flicking on, please. So we do have to communicate risk. You know, we do want to focus in on the main risks, and we want this to be an ongoing conversation. North Yorkshire is more likely to have flooding than aeroplane incidents. It's more likely to have issues with severe weather than it is to say, for example, some of the more bigger urban Grenfell type scenarios. So we have to be able to communicate these risks to our member of public. You know, we want them to be able to feel empowered so they can anticipate the emergencies before they happen, so that they can do some preparation if that's what they felt is appropriate, that they can prepare themselves so they can understand what to do when the incident happens, to respond, to recover, to know what their link is with yourselves as elected members and then to us as the organisations. If you'd click on again, please. Okay, so I think to break down North Yorkshire Council's responsibilities in emergency, there's three aspects to this. We have to be able to deliver our day-to-day critical service when the incidents are going on. We have got our social care, our schools, our highways network, the environmental health, the housing that needs to be supported whilst the incidents are going on. At the same time, we carry the emergency services coming to us to look for support. There may be niche equipment, welfare provision, or staffing that the council has that they may not have themselves. But fundamentally, it's to support the communities. It's those communities where it may not be a statutory requirement, but because of the effects that it's had, we want to come together collectively to ensure that they can be supported. Again, if you would pass on to the next slide, please. So what this means for us as North Yorkshire Council, before the incidents, so I'm Head of Resilience and Emergencies. I sit under Rachel Joyce as the Assistant Chief Exec for Local Engagement. Alongside myself, you have the Head of Local Engagement. So I know Councillor Good mentioned about community networks, community anchors, community partnerships. That's now Marianne Jackson, who picks up that piece of work. Community safety and CCTV, that's Adette Robson, alongside Will Boardman from Policy. So the four of us as heads of service sit under Rachel, and you can very much see how community partnerships, day-to-day resilience, stronger communities links into the community resilience conversation that we're having. We have a couple of officer groups at the council to make sure that we can have the plans in place. You know, we are a large organisation now. There is a lot of individuals and vehicles and personnel and resources that we can access, but that needs to be in a coordinated fashion. And also, before the incident happens, we need to make sure the political assurance is there. So the leader, Councillor Les, he is the portfolio holder for emergency planning. I meet Councillor Les regularly. Overview and scrutiny for partnerships I'll attend, as well as I attend audit. And they ask at the end of this presentation is I can come to yourselves on an annual basis as well as an area constituency committee to give some of these updates. During the incident, we are a 365, 24/7 organisation. We need to make sure that we can deliver our critical services out of hours. And the way that we access those out of hours is through the normal means. So, for example, if there was highways incidents that need to be reported, it could be through 101 and the police to make sure it comes through to the right services in the organisation. Social care, we have emergency duty teams, just for a couple of examples. But when we want to scale up for emergencies and major incidents, you'd come through to my duty officer in the first instance. That duty officer will then look to support by putting you through to what we call the Silver Commander. So within the Silver Commander, the Silver Commanders within North Yorkshire Council are Rachel Joyce, Jennifer Norton, Paul Thompson, Robert Ling, Callum McEwen, Michael Lear. When the incident happens, there's always one of those on call, and they will be your link as the elected member. You'll come through the Resilience Emergency Duty Officer, but you'll end up speaking to the Silver Commander. And then when we get into the recovery of it, the incident response could take a day. It could take a couple of days, but the recovery can take days, it can take weeks, it can take months, it can take years. That's particularly where the local authority comes into its own and comes into its strength. And I do believe that's where elected members have a real strong leadership role to play, supporting those communities. If you'd put on to the next slide, please. So we've produced an elected members handbook, which will be sent to you all in the next couple of weeks. It's gone to a meeting that Rachel chairs on Tuesday. We've given officers until the end of the week to sign it off. Once that's been agreed, we'll email it out to you. That will set out basically what we believe is a good role for you to take before the incidents, during and after. If you click on. So I think this group has got a large part to play before incidents happen. I think the area constituency committees give us a real good opportunity to see about what good practice is happening elsewhere, see where our communities are most at risk, if there are gaps, if there are resources that we want to try and support them with, that we have it as an ongoing dialogue. But as I mentioned also, there's the political assurance that I go into. If you click again, please. So not this time, but one of my recommendations is that we come back at a future meeting and have it as a conversation around helping you identify the risks within your locality. What we are producing is community resilience profiles for each of you. That is for your division. This year, it's set out around the flood risk, because that's where we get the most data. So it's what is the flood risk within your division. It will give you an understanding of the flood warnings that are in place and the percentage of your communities that have signed up to that flood warning. And it will also identify if you have got groups like what Councillor Good talked about in Knaresborough that exist already, and it will give you the contact links into the council. I'd like to then have a further opportunity at a sensible time to come back and then have this as a good conversation around what if it works well in Knaresborough, is there something we can try and harness in other divisions? Again, if you flick on, please. So the role of elected member is key in the incident. Absolutely, business as usual incidents should go through to business as usual telephone numbers. But if it becomes community impacts, then we want to raise it up. That Silver Commander is your conduit. That Silver Commander will be making links to yourselves to update you as the incident progresses. But if you feel like the information isn't coming to you, or you feel that you're one of the first to be aware, that's how you get into it. And we won't share the numbers in this meeting, but we'll make sure you have that number outside of this. Again, if you'd flick on, please. And likewise, absolutely, the role of the elected member in recovery is key. But at the end of this, we want to make sure that we're having a dialogue with yourselves about lessons identified, because we are very much aware that when the large incidents happens, there'll always be some rocks that will be overturned, and we'll look at it and say, well, actually, next time, how can we improve? What went well? What didn't go so well? And if there were some recommendations. So we want to make sure you're involved with that for your area constituency committees. If you flick on, please. So they're the contacts that we have for each year. So you've got Simon Wright, who's actually online at the moment. He was at another meeting at RAF Leeming this morning, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to put his face on. But following on from this, I'd like the opportunity for Simon to make contact with yourselves, to have this then as a next steps conversation. Again, if you'd, next slide, please. This is the idea of these community resilience profiles. So it's never been done before. None of the councils have had these. So it's going to be a start of the conversation. If you'd like to see it in a different way, if you'd like to see it in a different format, if there's different risks you want us to involve in those, then this is an ongoing conversation. But we'd like to start with something, and we think flood risk is the right place to start, and then we'll develop them over time. Next slide, please. So just to give a bit of an overview then, so in the PowerPoint presentation that's gone out to you, hopefully, it will set out where we currently are with either the sign-up of flood warnings, the percentage of people that have done that, and where we've got community resilience. I think we find ourselves at a perfect opportunity with the development of what's going on in Harrogate to see how we start developing the community resilience. Now that we are the one council, how is the best way to work with our communities in the Harrogate area where we don't currently have a town council to actually try and figure out the best groups to link in with. Again, parish councils, town councils have worked well, but what we've learned from COVID is there are other groups out there that may want to take a bit of a lead. Sometimes it's businesses, sometimes it's individual residents, sometimes it's the elected member very much leading it from the forefront. If you flick through, I don't need to stay on these, but that's just a bit of a takeaway of where we are. Your actual profile will go into a bit more detail. So just to kind of sum up, again, this is the start of the conversation. This is the first chance I've had to sit in front of you to have the community resilience conversation. The bits that I would like to take away is that you will receive your elected members' handbook in the next couple of weeks. That will have your community resilience profile with it. I'd then like to be able to allow Simon to make contact with you each to see what other conversation you want to have on an individual level. And then what I'd also like to have is the opportunity to come back potentially annually to have it as a more informed conversation about some of the good practice that's happened within the divisions and see where we've got some of the gaps. So I will stop there, Chair, if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Matt. Very appreciated. Right, we've got Councillor Lacey. Do you want to ask a question?
So, yeah, thank you, Matt. And some of it's familiar, but it's great that it's sort of moving on. Particularly welcome the fact, in terms of the new structure of North Yorkshire, that you're aligned with stronger communities, etc., etc. I suppose that my point, you'd probably be aware of it, but in terms of Harrogate and the links to stronger communities, anchor organisations, community partnerships, etc., we're likely to be behind the curve because, as you'll be aware, there is a sort of developmental process in both Harrogate and Scarborough. That I'm not suggesting it would jeopardise, but it would colour the way in which you're able to develop an infrastructure within Harrogate to actually respond to different needs. And I'm sure all members here will recognise that Harrogate itself is it's not quite a sort of lots of little villages, but it's certainly distinctive in terms of how and where things will, how people will respond. So that's just an observation that you're probably aware of, but I'd want to highlight it at this ACC, that this is, in terms of the Harrogate town area, there are small c concerns, contexts that need to be borne in mind. And I suppose it would come with a conversation that you've indicated that you'd like to have, but the breadth of potential risks that you can't always identify, but things like maybe there's a cyber attack on the hospital and therefore it closes its door for 2 days. Those are the sort of rehearsals that I'm sure you'll go through and need to be particular specific to the Harrogate area. A hospital would be a vulnerability, but other cyber attacks might mean that nobody can sort of move around the town or whatever. So I look forward to engaging those conversations. Thank you, Matt.
Chair, if you're happy if I just come back quickly on that.
Yeah,
that's
no
fine.
problem.
Absolutely. And Marianne Jackson and I work very closely together and we're aware that what's going on within Harrogate. And I sometimes think it could be both local engagement and resilience to emergencies come at the same time, because although I deal with the acute incidents, those no notice, floods, severe weather, the more malicious threat incidents, Marianne's picking up the more chronic cost of living, ongoing. Well, actually, the people that will step up and support the day-to-day are quite often the people that will step up when the incident happens. So it does need to be very much linked together, but I know that's an evolving picture within Harrogate. And it's just hopefully for your reassurance that the responding organisations absolutely deal with both the non-malicious risks and the malicious risks to make sure that we've got appropriate plans and capabilities to deal with those. So some of the things you talked around with Harrogate Hospital, we're very much aware of, and it's obviously something that happens within the partnership world.
Thank you. No more. Thank you very much, Matt. Really appreciate that. Right, now we're going to go to agenda item 11, which is an update from the working groups. From the chairs of the following working groups: Climate Working Group, no, Well, all I can say is there's not been a meeting, so there wouldn't be an update. Update from the Bathing Water Working Group.
Can I actually ask for an update from Mark? Because as it describes on page 21, we asked for the environment, or a member of the Environment Agency and National Farmers Union, to be invited to an ACC meeting. I just wondered whether that had been actioned, and it's coming up to 6 months since Yorkshire Water. Well, actually, in 2 days, Yorkshire Water came on the 16th of March and promised an update to us. And I wonder whether it is possible to chase them if it hasn't already been done.
We were going to discuss this as part of the next agenda item. Yorkshire Water and the Environment Agency, we've been chasing them to come back to the committee. There have been numerous, I think I put it in the report, there have been a number of requests from other area constituency committees, and they only have one limited number of group of staff. So we're currently looking at whether we can facilitate sessions across a number of committees, or we can schedule a meeting well in advance, but at the moment we haven't got anything. We have got a written update, and Charlie, I don't know if it's been sent out yet or it's in the process of being sent out. I can't remember if we'd actually done that. Well, we'll send it out to members, but basically we've only recently had an update, a written update, because they couldn't make an in-person session, so we'll get that round members. Regarding the Environment Agency, I have put in a request for them, and I have heard nothing back, so I will be following up. I've put that in the report that I've done that on your behalf, and again I'll be following it up because I am aware that they've attended at least one of their ACC meetings. So again, I'll be following it up on your behalf. But it's a longer process than just trying to put in a request and I get that must have gone in 2 months ago that I've put in a request and I've heard nothing back. So that's the update I have from that, I'm afraid.
Is that also the same with the National Farmers Union?
It is indeed, yes. We're still following it up. Everything that's in the work program, we've followed it up as best we can, and we'll put an update in as soon as we get something back.
You said 2 months. You haven't chased up in the meantime. About 2 months is a long time before you don't get any response. You would have thought to respond to get back to them within 2 months would have been a reasonable.
If I can say that I'm going into an organisation without any contact details, it's the same as any other member of the public to try and get in there. So I'm going to a mailbox, which then gets a response back to me. I'm having to go back through. Well, I've now noticed a name from another ACC, so I'm going to go through there and try that way as well.
Okay, thank you for that. The update from the Voluntary Sector Working Group.
I believe Mark is still trying to convene a date, so we haven't met, but there's...
My apology. Well, I've tried to coordinate a number of dates, but there's just been no dates within the summer period where anybody has been able to get together more than 1 or 2 people. So I will be again doing it. I guarantee when we've got everybody back in the next month, we will have something organised. But again, it's just been... I've tried at least 2 or 3 times to try and do something. Yeah.
And then we've got the update on the Harrogate Station Gateway Working Group, which was on now.
Yeah, we were in this process of putting that together. We have got a group in place, but I think with the agreement yourself, Chair, we agreed to wait until the outcome of the executive meeting to see what the potential involvement in ACC members and particularly the working group would be, and then arrange meetings to suit that timetable, depending on the outcome of that meeting, Chair.
Yeah, and we also had it's gone, and now it's come back again. So, yes, it's been difficult. And any more on the working groups? If not, we'll move on to committee work programme.
I've tried to capture everything in the report, Chair, that we've picked up. Again, some of the things we've talked about, the members of built and treatment works, we're still awaiting from Yorkshire Water a date and time for that one. And again, I've just updated on the other one. Informal briefings, just a couple here that are proposed and potentially to go through with the committee. I've put in there the playing pitch strategy because I think there's been a number of requests to the team about the playing pitch strategy, and I think it's thinking to sort of get that coordinated discussion, to get an informal briefing with members, if that's okay, with the committee, if they see if, I know Councillor Schofield's got an interest.
Yeah, sorry, thank you for that, Mark. Thanks for the lead in, to be fair. Yeah, because I think I'd prefer to have it as more formal, to be fair, because everybody within this chamber who sits on the ACC and the officer received an email from myself sent on the 24th of August this year. Certain points of clarification still remain unanswered, and I therefore think, in my opinion, it's only fair that we make it a more formal piece of work on the work programme, because I think we need to be closer to it for reasons, as we all know, it underpins for Section 106 money in planning. I think we need to have a closer hand on this due to those questions that I've asked for clarification on and still have not had clarification on.
Is that a proposal you want to put to the committee?
Yes, please, Chair.
Do I have a seconder for that? It's been seconded. Any more comments? Because if not, we'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous.
Yeah. So just for confirmation, that's an item to be included in a formal meeting that we can have an open discussion about it. Yeah. Okay. I'll carry on. There was due to go to every area constituency committee a report regarding the £50,000 seed funding that's available to area constituency committees. That wasn't available at the time, so it's intending to have an informal session with committee members for them to inform the process as well. So that will be coming up for members of the committee as well. And two other ones about the report back and the interim results, the Let's Talk Transport Survey. I think it's linked in with the Q&A session on the next steps of the climate strategy. That's something that's been requested, to have an informal session with members. If you're happy for me to coordinate that on your behalf, we can get that sorted out. That's good. And then the actual official work programme, I have just a couple of updates, if I can bring it up. So just to confirm that we now have a confirmed date for the local MP to attend the committee on the 12th of January. So again, that's been confirmed now. But we intended to put an item on the next agenda for any particular issues that you may want to sort of raise to pass on in advance of that session, or we could do that between meetings or something along those lines. And equally, if there's anything coming back the other way, we can actually pass that on to members as well. So it's just to say that's been progressed and that will be coming up as part of that meeting. And I think everything else on there is as was at the last meeting, with any updates that we can possibly do. So again, we have items identified for the next meeting in November, which is the Youth Council update, schools educational achievement and finance, an annual report identified. But any other of those other items that we could get to that meeting, we will obviously try and get to the meeting, including the playing pitch strategy.
Just a quick one to add to the one for November. Is it possible to get a report or something on the implications of the boundary changes and how that will affect this committee? Please, sorry.
If that's a suggestion for members that they would like it to be pursued and have a look at that, we will look at that, yeah.
Yes, please, if I could propose that we have a report on the implications of the boundary changes for this committee, please.
That's noted.
Yes, sorry. Sorry, yeah, parliamentary ones.
Are there any other urgent items? Councillor Lacey?
Just on the work programme and I'd like to suggest that we were at a health briefing the other day. The Integrated Care Board are implementing a new urgent care strategy across North Yorkshire, across Humber and North Yorkshire. And there are, I believe, implications for Harrogate and Harrogate District Hospital. Positive ones, but I think ones that we would want to be discussing and exploring, partly because Harrogate doesn't quite sort of fit the national model, and therefore there may be compensating elements that we want to encourage the Integrated Care Board leads on urgent care. It was received well as a suggestion at the health scrutiny the other day. So I'd just like to suggest in the new year perhaps that we invite the Integrated Care Board urgent care lead, whose name escapes me now, but we'll find it, to present how the urgent care strategy may impact on Harrogate Hospital and the community.
Any more? Okay. Somebody's got their...
Sorry, and if we're moving very quickly on to any other business, we had a brief discussion last week. It's only come up recently in terms of the questions we've been asking about bins. Can I mention bins right at the end of the meeting? The Harrogate district accounts for half of the missed bin collections across the whole of North Yorkshire. I think that's something that as an ACC we should be encouraging alignment in terms of performance. There is a commitment to that. There's now a recognition from the exec that there are particular issues, but I think the ACC should be interested in making progress to ensure that the Harrogate district, and I know it's wider than in terms of how the data works, but how we're not disadvantaged in terms of bin collection. So it's just a request that we get reports on that as hopefully we come to meet other areas' performance.
Anything else? If there's nothing else, then let's go to the date of the next meeting, which is the 23rd of November. And can I thank you all for being able to go through without being fed. I apologise for that. Anyway, thank you very much for your contributions, and thank you very much to Mark for helping us through this process. Thank you.